It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Well, I was going to take today off, July 5th, Friday, July 5th, 2013, and have Paul Watson and others host the show. But just too much has happened. Too much is going on. And so I'm not going to sit here on the sidelines, and I know that folks want to hear my breakdown on things, my take on it, and so we're here. And we'll also open the phones up and get your take on things as well. Obviously, Mohammed Morsi has been deposed starting about 2 days ago in a military coup d'etat or putsch over in Egypt. Now, I have mixed analysis on this, but overall, this is a big blow to the globalists, and this is not what they wanted. They wanted to put the Muslim Brotherhood and al-Qaeda in charge of every Middle Eastern and North African country, and even spill that into Central Africa, as well as the East Coast of Africa particularly. But it also goes into the West Coast all the way down into Nigeria. This is the plan. The globalist crime syndicate that controls our government and other governments runs radical Islam on record. I've been telling you that for 15, 16 years. I didn't even really understand that the first few years I was on air. And being called the ultimate evil and conspiracy. But now it's all openly admitted. But it just hangs out there in plain view, and the state and the system uses the fear of the Muslim extremists that they wind up and fund and control as a pretext to take our liberties and launch all these wars. So it's really elementary what's going on. So we're going to be going over some of that today. Also, big NSA scandals. We told you about this years ago. We told you about it last week with Wayne Madsen when it was denoticed and expunged out of the London Guardian and Observer under government orders that the EU is spying illegally on all their citizens as well and sharing it with England and the United States, and that we even use the foreigners to spy on us, and then our so-called government spies on them. It's total globalization, training everyone to let foreigners rule over you. Just like they're now going to have Canadian police on this side of the border policing American citizens and vice versa. That's been announced just yesterday. That story's up on Infowars.com. It's just this incremental ratcheting up of tyranny, a conversion into a police state. So we're going to be getting into the NSA, latest information, huge developments in the bond market. Have central banks lost control? Could the bond bubble implode even if there is no tapering? And again, that's happening right now. Several point losses just today so far in the bond market, a few months later than what Keiser said. We'll see if he turns out being completely right, if it really continues to collapse. So we're going to get into Morsi and that unbelievable development. The European states ordering an aircraft with a sovereign leader, Morales, to have his aircraft forced down, believing that Snowden may have been on board the Bolivian leader's flight. Unbelievable. That's New World Order for you. Piracy in the skies, on the streets, you name it. Also, another Infowars.com article. Commercials to be broadcast directly into consumers' heads. I first started covering this about 16 years ago when I saw MIT reporting on it. And then about 10 years ago when Tokyo started actually putting these into soft drink machines and vending machines, where at a distance it beams into your brain. But it made people so upset in Tokyo and in L.A. In trials, they withdrew it. But now they don't care. And Homeland Security will be beaming directly to your head. and they'll be taking over your cell phone with government messages. See, the NSA takeover isn't just one way where they spy on you. Then they force their conduit onto you. It's really an internet takeover. We're going to break that down as well. That's right, my friends. Waging war on corruption. Crashing through the lies and disinformation. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, on this Friday, the 5th day of July, 2013 worldwide transmission. Okay, let me try to be disciplined here and just tell you what's coming up today. Obviously, the unbelievable military coup d'etat against Mohammed Morsi in Egypt, a big deal. This is not what the New World Order wanted. I'm going to give you my researched historical take on that first, after I tell you what else is coming up. Paul Watson wrote an article yesterday morning that went viral via drudgereport.com from Infowars.com. Homeland Security conducts top secret July 4th drill. TSA undercover agents to patrol transport hubs. And we have links as sources on that to KTTV and the Los Angeles Times. And there were indeed federalized police all over the U.S. running warrantless checkpoints, searching people's bags on highways, roads, downtown areas, transportation hubs. That is martial law. It is martial law when Congress is told 2 years in a row that our military is under NATO command, and Congress isn't over the power of the purse and the military. It is martial law when the NSA spies on you without warrants, committing felonies every single time. It is martial law when $85 billion a month, now for the last 2 years, it was $40 billion a month before that previously, under QE Infinity, is given to mainly offshore banks and private companies, media companies, manufacturing companies, banks, you name it. $85 billion a month, and Congress is told they can't be told who it's given to. 5 years ago, I have the Obama deception with clip after clip in Congress of them saying that. And I was watching C-SPAN during breaks last Tuesday of this week, just this Tuesday, and they were doing the same thing, saying, we won't answer your questions. It's not even a news issue now. That's called brazen tyranny. And that's why it's going to get worse, because the tyrants kind of have an orgy. And then soon they figure out nothing can stop them, and they just go completely wild. Until things come full circle and the military puts a stop to it. That tends to be what happens, but then it just falls back into corruption because all of the corruption is in place. It's very rare that the military stands up and something good comes out of it. And I'll tie that into Morsi in a minute. There's only been a few revolutions run by people like the original revolutionary boss of liberty, George Washington, who fought, let's be conservative, 10-to-1 odds, 10-to-1 odds in a 7+ year war, and won through pure perseverance, and then was offered to be king and gave it up, and the King of England called him the greatest man alive in the world. Because their ancestors had all gotten it through military victories, being generals and things hundreds of years before. They knew how you became a king. They knew how you set up a dynasty over what would become the greatest empire the world had ever seen. I mean, we might have George the 10th right now. But he said no and went home to his farm. I was at Barton Springs yesterday. Went and swam a half mile, didn't have a lot of time. After I jogged around Town Lake. And I walked in and I saw the coolest shirt ever. I'm going to make our own variant of it. This was by Ranger Up. Group of Rangers that put out great T-shirts. I've seen them before, and this guy was wearing this shirt that was red. It was supposed to look like Che Guevara at a distance, but it was really a big tri-cornered hat in George Washington, and it said the original revolutionary. This is not product placement. I'm going to get one. And on the back it said, you know, led troops against overwhelming odds and won. Was offered to be king, turned it down. And it had some other statements about George Washington. That's what the 4th of July is all about. Not government making itself king and every bureaucrat making themselves a lord in your area and taking on the very same imperious, arrogant attitudes towards the people. It is disgraceful. So I'm going to get into that today. And all the time when I hear a rebroadcast, I say I'm going to cover this, I say I'm going to cover that, and I don't get to everything. I've got to tell you the stories of what happened yesterday, just when I jogged around the hike and bike trail and when I went swimming in Barton Springs. In fact, I'll tell that now, then I'll get into Morsi, then I'll get into Homeland Security conducts top secret July 4th drill, federalizing police with grants to go out and run warrantless checkpoints. That's police going under federal control, literally urinating all over the Bill of Rights and Constitution in the name of safety. Well, yeah, safety for the tyrants. Also, Jakari Jackson went down yesterday and filed the report this morning, and we're going to premiere it here at the bottom of the next hour, to the armed march on the Texas Capitol. And we've checked the laws. You cannot take weapons into the Capitol, but off the Capitol grounds, the police violated the law and violated the Constitution, and through color of law, ordered people to take their clips out of their rifles, which, by the way, weren't even loaded. So disgraceful activities right there. The people say they complied. And again, these guys had the courage to go out with rifles on the street, knowing it's legal and lawful, but that people, it's like seeing a black person after slavery was ended, you know, running their own business. People would go and burn it down. It's like, hey, you're not going to run a business and be free. And it's the same thing. We're having our own civil rights of having guns and openly carrying them to say, look, stop trying to put our guns in the closet so you can then ban them. We're out of the closet with our guns. We're not ashamed of it. And still, the Austin police, the same ones that 3 months ago tried to say we couldn't hand out magazines downtown until I had to threaten to sue them, lo and behold, went and violated the Constitution, Bill of Rights, along with the state police. I'm going to be showing that coming up. Total color of law. I think I need to now just get around to it, get a loaded rifle, and go march up and down. And then they'll try some fake disorderly conduct or something. I'll have cameras and I'll beat it. And, you know, they try to slam my head in the ground or something and then say I resisted them, whatever. I mean, at a certain point, we got to sit at the front of the bus here. We're not sitting at the back of the bus anymore. And just watching this, it's got to be dealt with. So Jakari Jackson is going to be in here at the bottom of the hour. Paul Watson's coming up later in this hour. And Max Keiser, we just called him. I thought, hey, why don't we try to get Max Keiser on right before the show started, because he predicted the bond market would begin to implode, and that's now starting. And even mainstream corporate media is saying this may be the beginning of that. Now, they may pump it back up or something. They've got all sorts of insider trading tricks. But we'll find out with Max Keiser last 30 minutes today, just to give you an idea of how big this broadcast is going to be. So that's just some of what we're going to be breaking down today. And then I do want to mention a Mediaite and Newsbuster article before this hour ends that are just another example of disinformation. And I'm seeing this every day against Infowars.com and yours truly, where they will take something I've said that is mainstream media, alternative media, for reasons of jealousy, reasons of envy, reasons of establishment bootlicking, especially when it's Media Matters, run by the White House or MSNBC. They will say and edit clips of what I've said out of context to misrepresent what I've said. So I will get to that briefly. Incredible what they can do with editing. And I don't know who edited it, but it's just what they do. And my listeners need to understand this is going to happen more and more. And it's generally off of calls. You'll call in, you'll say, could this be weather weapons that hit Oklahoma, the tornadoes? And I say, well, weather weapons are real, and here's the history, and here's a Fox News and AP article, and here's a Daily Mail story, but I don't think this was probably a weather weapon. But you can never tell because they've already modified the atmosphere so much, they may not even know they've done something that's causing a problem. But I said it's probably a real tornado. Tornadoes are at 60-year lows. Here's USA Today. That turns into, I said Obama sent the tornado. And folks, it's every day without looking now. They'll put out an article going, he's lying, 200,000 bullets got bought. And they'll show one line item out of thousands of bullet purchases the last 2 years, over $2 billion, and just say, look, he's a liar, and put it in hundreds of newspapers. And they just do it constantly. And they do it from the right wing, the left wing, because it's all a bunch of establishment people who are threatened by the fact that we're expanding people's horizons and getting people to think outside the box. And I bring this up because it's positive that InfoWars is being attacked from every angle. That's happening because we're so on target, ladies and gentlemen. We're going off globalist source documents. We know what we're talking about. So that's coming up as well today. Now, when we come back here in about a minute and a half, we're going to break in about a minute and a half. I'll come back, get into the Morsi. And then, as I said, the big banking news, it's all up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And then after I've covered Morsi, I'll get into the latest NSA. The Bolivian president's plane was ordered down by the, quote, U.S. in Europe to look if Snowden was on board. See, there's no diplomatic immunity for countries unless they're in the inside gang. It's not the U.S. that ordered this. It's the big banks that run America. The whole world knows, I mean, that Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of England, Bundesbank runs America and the nuclear weapons. The Army War College brags about this. And the Russians are scared. The communist Chinese aren't scared. They're in a secret alliance that's been declassified with the globalists since they put Mao in 1949. And that's why everybody's so scared. It's the United States and all the nuclear weapons with the communist Chinese in an alliance against the world. And they use the Chinese labor against the American people. I mean, we are just under total occupation, and those aren't just words. So I'm also going to get into the fact that we're really under a type of martial law that they're phasing in incrementally. And now cybersecurity is really pointed at the internet and the free press. We'll explain that as well. All right, folks, we're live. It is the 5th day of July, 2013. And I have never been more aware of the tyranny and corruption and never been more driven to resist the globalists than I was yesterday. I was literally on fire with the light of liberty. Brush fires were burning in my own mind, and I had a desire to spread the brush fires of liberty into the minds of men and women everywhere. And here I am, and here you are, and I'm very honored and thankful that you're listening. And it was almost like a pilgrim's progress, the few hours I spent down around the river and then going swimming, listening to people and talking to people. I ran into people laying there on the grass, bragging about how they were going to work for the NSA to spy on people. I ran into people that walked up and said, shut up, you shouldn't have free speech in America. It was bizarre. But I also ran into just incredible people that were totally awake and burning with the fires of liberty. There's really a spiritual choice happening, not just here, but all over the world. There is a great awakening happening, a new enlightenment, a new renaissance. And the establishment knows that and is doing everything it can to suppress that spirit. And you're going to have a lot of people that decide to serve the evil. And I look at people that serve the globalist, how they're animated on power trips because they work for the system. And they're such little people. They're so pathetic. I'm going to break some of that down coming up. But right now, let's get into Mohammed Morsi. This is what we know on record. At the Grove Hotel in Watford, England, 3 years ago, Google met with MI6, French intelligence, German intelligence, Dutch intelligence, and others, with Google running the meeting. This has been the London Guardian. Google's proud of it. See, they love to brag about what they're doing. And they all met, and they said, we're going to fund radical Muslims in North Africa, into the Middle East, and we're going to overthrow these countries and put al-Qaeda in charge of Libya and Syria. And we're going to put Muslim Brotherhood, al-Qaeda Light, who will then financially support them, in control of Egypt, in control of Iraq, and they're even going to try to do this in Iran. And it is basically all Saudi Arabia working with the West to do this. And cause a revolution between Sunni and Shiite. And Sunnis are about 79% of the Muslims. So it's the majority group the globalists are allied with. And the core of that is al-Qaeda. Not attacking Sunnis here, but that's just a fact. Most Sunnis aren't a bunch of crazy people crucifying Christians en masse and cutting their hearts out and eating them on TV. I mean, this is what's going on. And blowing up churches every 2 or 3 days, firebombing mosques that are minority groups they don't agree with, minority group Muslims, crucifying Christians at the presidential palace in Cairo. I mean, we post videos of this, and YouTube takes them down, and they take other people's down as well, but this is all online. I mean, I see this stuff, 5,000 al-Qaeda in a square chanting, "We will destroy America, we will blow you up, we will chop your heads off, we will..." And there's a new video out today with them saying this. The FSA fighters going, "After Assad, America, I will use missiles to destroy you." And it's, you know, I mean, they're not playing games. But then the cop, you'll be at a checkpoint, you're like, "Line up, I'm going to search your vehicle." You know, after 9/11, things changed. The government runs al-Qaeda. The government is foreign banks. This is why they hate me, folks. I'll just state the elephant in the room. And so I don't like military coups. People try to romanticize a military coup here in America to restore the republic. It may have to come to that someday, but by then it'll all be drones, so it'll be almost impossible. That's the globalist checkmate they're going to. But they have things planned so horrible that they plan to go after the military and police who won't play ball. That's why they say the new terror threat is veterans, gun owners, and active duty, because they know that's the group who has the most constitutional information left in their brains. If you're on a power trip, you know, believe the state's almighty and, you know, you're doing a good job, so everybody better get out of your way, you'll be just fine for a while. But those of you, believe me, they know who you are, they're going to come after you in a night of the long knives. So when we come back, I'll finish up with my take on what's happening in Morsi. It's with Morsi and what's happening with the military over there. I mean, it's on record. The military says the West is funding basically an al-Qaeda takeover in Egypt, and we're not going to have jihadis running this country. And so our criminal government is trying to tell the military to put Morsi and al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood back in charge. Our government runs al-Qaeda, period. That's right. The death machine ain't slowing down. That's Summer of Rage by our good friend Shooter Jennings. The InfoWar inspired that album. And look at the cover of Drudge. Friday of Rage, Islamicist push back. And it shows the shaved head, big bearded jihadis. I'm not saying all Muslims that have beards are bad. My point is, these are radical, globalist jihadis that are openly killing Shiites and other Alawite minority groups and burning down churches and attacking Christians en masse. And the Egyptian military basically has its roots in Ba'athist, to understand this, in Ba'athist leaders. So does Syria, so does Iraq, who said, we want to build power plants, we want to build dams, we want to have movie theaters, we want our girls to go to college and not wear burqas over their heads. And there has been a fight for 100 years, by Saudi Arabia and their corrupt regime with the globalists to put radical Islam in charge everywhere. That's why if you're historically informed, it's such a joke on 9/11 to say al-Qaeda did this when criminal elements of our government created it. The hijackers were trained at U.S. bases. Newsweek, Associated Press. I don't know exactly what happened. I just know there better be a real independent investigation. There was definitely a stand down, and they definitely used 9/11 to take our liberties. Don't you get it? They're criminal elements in the government who are using radical Islam to bring countries down. And Adolf Hitler was elected president. They have a president and a chancellor in Germany at that time in 1933. And then Kaiser Wilhelm got so sick and old and the coalition government was falling apart, so Hitler then became Führer, chancellor and president at the same time, or the leader. Then a few months later, he firebombed the Capitol, blamed it on his political enemies, drugged up a mentally ill person, Marinus van der Lubbe, had a show trial, and chopped his head off. You go, what does this have to do with Mohammed Morsi? Hitler was elected. Obama was elected, if you believe that. The communists sat around and voted in committees and elected Mao. Julius Caesar was given much of his powers before he became king by the Senate. So people are saying, and Obama's saying, and the media's saying, how dare the military of Egypt depose Mohammed Morsi, who they quietly came to when 14 million people were in the streets on Monday, the biggest demonstration in world history, 14 million in Cairo, and it's now been released by the London Guardian by the military of Egypt saying, here's what happened, here's the timeline. And Morsi's confirmed that that is indeed the case. They came to him on Monday and they said, you got to step down right now. We can't control these people. They're going to overthrow everything. People say, well, the Egyptian military was trained in the U.S. The Egyptian military, you know, they're not good. The point is Morsi was so bad, the people'd already won. You know, when you've got thousands of people to every copper military in the streets, it's over. They would have burned the entire country down to the ground. So the military comes to him and says, listen, we're getting funded by the globalists. We're doing what you say. You know, you're lighting Christians on fire. I mean, he would take them. They're burning them in the streets. They were crucifying them at the presidential palace. There's film of this. Imagine lined with Christians crucified. This is our government supporting this. And notice it's never on our news, folks. Because it's not politically correct. If a gay person gets punched in the nose in public, it's a hate crime. The person is arrested. It's national news for 6 weeks. We have footage, and an article going up right now, of groups of gay people beating up Christians and the police doing nothing, and the media spinning it like it was a brawl. And again, I'm not getting into some obsession over gay people. I quite frankly am sick of hearing about it. My point is it's the same deal. You're beating up Christians, you're burning Christians, or Muslim minority groups that are nonviolent, like Alawites, that are a totally nonviolent group. This is the type of out-of-control garbage that's happening right now. And so that's what I'm getting at here, is that Hitler was elected. So just because Morsi was elected a year ago and then had a reign of terror, cities under martial law, Sharia law being put in, families that wanted their girls to go to college, kicking them out of college, slapping burqas on women's heads. You know, Muslims didn't even do that until the last couple hundred years. And that's a Saudi Arabian thing. Rich women who had to go in the market, who didn't want their skin burned. It was upper class to have unblemished white skin because it meant you didn't work in the fields. Same thing in Europe where everybody was white. Like Schwarzenegger means black plowman. Just meant you were out in the field. It was lower class to have a son, to, you know, be a redneck. Well, it's the same thing in the Middle East. Women wore those as upper class, and then sometimes really rich women would wear a full thing because if they had to go through town, you don't get to look at them. Then it became a style that they then basically Islamicized. This is real reality you're hearing about right here. If they had some ultra-rich, you know, woman being transported by ship to visit, say, her father, and she's going to go out on the deck of the ship, she covers her face up because these people don't even get to look at her. When she gets out at the palace, she's wearing a crown. Everybody sees her face. This is how they use style to control people. Going back thousands of years ago, the inner court would say, you're so royal, you can't walk. We have to carry you. Let's bind your feet. You're such a princess. Let's bind them. That's where high heel shoes, all of that comes from. That's how they use style to control us. And I'm going to go to Paul Watson here in a moment. I just want to give you background on all this. So I'm not saying it's even a good thing the military deposed Mohammed Morsi. But from a geopolitical thing of what happened, it is a devastating blow against the New World Order. And that's why the EU and the Global Crime Syndicate and Obama are reeling with anger. They are turning al-Qaeda loose, which is part of their deal for al-Qaeda to take the blame for 9/11, to send in its double agents, to be involved in that Saudi Arabia and the bin Ladens were given in 1 week after 9/11, a $3 billion defense contracting deal just for bases in the Middle East. Look it up. Immediately $3 billion extra. The Carlyle Group, Bush Sr. was meeting with the bin Ladens in the morning of 9/11 in D.C. at their table. That was their deal to take the blame in all of that. That's why Bandar Bush was on Larry King Live. That's his nickname, the Saudi Arabian prince, the ambassador from Saudi Arabia to the U.S. a week after 9/11. And Larry King badmouthed Osama bin Laden. And Bandar said, do not talk of this great man this way, disrespectfully. And Larry King said, I apologize. Ooh. See, because they knew that was going to be broadcast in Saudi Arabia, it's like, no, you don't talk of a man of great honor this way. Because he really already died of kidney failure, or right around that time. And so he was all just a cutout. And then their deal was, you get everything. We take out your enemy, Iraq. The Americans are so dumb. You supply the reported hijackers, 15 of them, the funding, the cover, all this came out in the news. We'll take out Iraq, the Ba'athist secular people to the north of you, and we'll bring in your jihadis and we'll let you take over. And then later we're going to give you Syria. We're going to give you Libya. We're going to give you all of North Africa. We're going to give you Egypt. We're going to give you everything. And even Wesley Clark admitted this in a speech he gave, that was the plan, to invade 6 countries over there and turn it over to Saudi Arabia. That's what they've done. This is a real geopolitical fact you're hearing, and this is why we're under such attack, because we're just pointing out the emperor is wearing no clothes. The Parable of the Emperor's New Clothes, if you haven't read it, look it up. It's online. Understand it. I'm just pointing out what is admitted fact, because I want liberty and freedom, and they're using this fake al-Qaeda threat to overthrow our country as well. And it is a crime against humanity to overthrow Libya and put in jihadis who've killed over 40,000 innocent people on record with machetes and are killing the black Christians and black Africans, Muslims that are in the area, and are just absolutely tearing out the infrastructure of that place. That's their job. And now they're doing it in Syria, and they're going to do it everywhere. This is unbelievable. And so the military comes. People are trying to say the military are heroes standing up to the jihadists. They don't have a choice. The globalists want to wreck every country, not just the Muslim countries, not just Pakistan. Our government put tens of thousands of jihadis in there to bomb and blow stuff up. And then our government goes and bombs innocent people to try to cause an overthrow of the Pakistani government. That's come out on record. That is the reality of what's going on here. And so they didn't even have a choice. 14 million people, the government was going to fall. The last biggest crowds were 3 million. 14 million, mainly secularist. And where's the big liberal, trendy atheist crowd? They're supporting Obama, folks. They're supporting the jihadis because they'll do whatever they're told. We go out on Man on the Street in California, in Austin, you name it. We walk up to the trendy areas and we say, take all the guns, put all Tea Partiers in FEMA camps for Obama. And they go, yes, do it. Because we said for Obama. See, because they're on the winning team. They're with Obama. He's got a peace prize, Jack. Anybody seen lately? He's part African. He can't do any wrong. This is the mindlessness. When you watch MSNBC, all they talk about is how smart liberals are and how dumb everybody else is. Folks, that's because their viewers are the dumbest people on the earth. And it's a cult of how smart they are when they can't even tie their shoelaces. I was 30 feet away on the hike and bike bridge. I just jogged about 1.5 miles. I stopped. I was going to shoot a quick video, which I did upload, about the federalization of police with checkpoints all over the country and how it's part of the integration of martial law. And I look over. I'm going to tell the whole story later if I have time. I look over and I see this woman about 30 feet away saying something loud. And it sounds like, shut up, you're brainwashing. I'm not talking loud on the video. You can see the video I shot. Then I turn it off. I'm talking about in this voice right here on the hiking and bike trail, on the pedestrian bridge, talking about checkpoints all over the country. And I walk over. And her and her husband are laughing at me. And they obviously know who I am because I was down the bridge. They couldn't have heard what I was even saying. And they go, yeah, shut up. And I looked at them. They look like government employees, feds, basically. He looked like a 50-year-old military type. She looked like a socialist liberal type. And I said, well, I mean, what's brainwashing? How'd you even hear what I was talking about? I'm way over there. And the husband goes, leave now. And at that point, I went, whoa, I've got a First Amendment. I said, I bet she can't even articulate why I'm a brainwasher. Come on, have a debate with me. I'm being very nice. He starts getting up and he goes, I told you to leave. And I went, all right, buddy. And I turned and put my hands, so I was going to let him hit me first, and then I was just going to absolutely tear his, well, I'm not going to say. The point is that I turned and put my hands on the rail, and I said, you know what, I got a First Amendment. Because I gave him the chance to walk away, and he goes, fine, we'll leave. Then she starts calling the police on me as I start shooting another video 50 yards away. And you could see that video from that point on. I started recording again. But the point is, that's the enemy, folks. They saw Alex Jones. There's no way they didn't just see this guy with a camera sitting there shooting video 30 feet away and then, get mad at him. They saw me, and they wanted to laugh, and they wanted to diss me, and they wanted to have me just get upset by it like they would and walk away fearfully. They wanted to peck at me and just teach me that I'm their slave. Let me just finish the rest of the story since I got to this, and I'll finish up with what happened with Morsi and then go to Paul Watson. Then I finish jogging because it's a mile and a half to there and about a mile and a half back to Barton Springs. I get there, go back to my car, get my mask and snorkel, go in, swim a half mile. I go lay out on the side of the grass, getting dried off, and immediately, I just learned all the types. There's 2 male cops and their wives, and I assess them. They're all in their 40s. You can tell they work for the state or the feds. These guys are cops, tattoos, former military stuff, shaved heads, laying out. And there's another woman, a third woman, and they're talking about her husband. So he's not going to work with the state anymore. No, he's going in for that cybersecurity job at the new center in San Antonio. And the women have all got their nails and they're rubbing on themselves and all feeling powerful. Because they're part of the ruling class. They're part of the government. And they're looking at everyone and, they're sitting there with their visors and everything and feeling very confident. And I look over and I go, I'm sitting 2 feet from them. That's where I put my towel out before they even got there. And before I went swimming, now I'm out. And I put my shirt on, stuff, and I look over and I go, oh, is that the NSA? Real nicely. And I knew what she'd do as soon as I said it. I knew she'd laugh at me. But I did it as a psych warfare test for myself, just to test myself. I looked at her real nice and said, oh, is that the NSA data center? And she looked back, and they all look, and they laugh, and they go, and she rubbed her legs when she did it, the pleasure of being part of the system. Not gonna tell you that. With her red lipstick, all sexy. America's ours now. She didn't say that. She went, not gonna tell you that. And smacked her lips. And the cops, might even have been feds, they kind of got their shoulders up a little bit out there, and they were just, ugh, this is our country now. It was just, ooh. And I looked at them with, and I'm more powerful in person. I looked at them and I said, deep down you're on the wrong side of history, and everything you're doing is illegal, and this country is going under, and that tyranny is being empowered. You're being told to walk around in an arrogant mode. And I said, when we get this country back, all of you that have engaged in crimes are going to be brought to justice. Do you understand that? And they weren't laughing anymore. I looked at those cops and I told them. And man, then I went and did the 4th of July deal. We rented kayaks, went out with hundreds of people with kayaks to watch the fireworks. And I could just spot the imperious nature of cops and bureaucrats. And I'd go, hey, you're a cop, aren't you? And the guy'd be like, how do you know that? Oh, Alex Jones. And again, I could tell, I couldn't tell good cops who aren't on power trips because they're just normal people out there. But I could tell the little boys, I don't need an NSA computer to know who you are. I've got the genetics of all my ancestors. I've got common sense. I've got discernment, and I see you. I see all of you, and you have signed on to total destruction. We have a government on record that's done thousands of lethal tests on our own military and police and citizens, and no one ever got in trouble. What does that tell you? At the top is pure evil. This country is occupied by pure evil, and I am on the air ringing the alarm bell. And it was disgusting to watch those people on power trips over the NSA spying on people. They were having an orgy of power trips in front of me. I'm not going to sit here and watch the classical evolution or de-evolution into oppression without a fight. And anytime I see people strutting around, acting powerful, I'm going to confront them. That includes groups of police. I'm in other cities, other places, I see cops arrogantly standing around or acting weird to people or, not getting out of the way for citizens when they're walking down the street or acting like thugs. I go over and talk to them and go, why are you acting so thuggish? And if they want to go, give me your license and stuff, that's fine. They're going to get an earful from me. And again, I obsess on the police because you're where the rubber meets the road. And if things get worse and worse, it may come down to the police and military because people need leadership to take this country back if the globalists start offensive purges against us, just like what's happening in Egypt. Let me tell you something, folks. 14 million people hit the streets. It's over. The government's coming down. I don't want that because it's so destabilizing and destroys the infrastructure. I want to have a revolution of the mind. I want those police and feds on power trips to not drink sodium fluoride on record that's killing them. I want them to know how deadly vaccines are on record and not just make jokes about it. I was talking to somebody that works in the city yesterday, and they were telling me how the city is just saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with smart meters, and they don't watch what you do, and they're not going to control you, and RF's not bad for you, when all the studies show the opposite, and they're in the news in Europe and the U.S. saying the smart meters will turn off your power during peak consumption or monitor what you're doing. They always said that. This is bad where we're going, and I know that I've been ranting on the subject, and I said I'd get to media disinformation. I'll have to cover this briefly later in the next hour. More and more I see these articles where they will, again, come and twist what I've said to try to say I'm a liar. And the system's doing this because they're scared and they want to discredit us. It's not going to work. Now, Paul Watson's going to be with us for the rest of the next hour. Then we'll have open phones for part of the third hour, and then Max Keiser's going to join us on huge news dealing with the bond market imploding, or beginning to implode, as he predicted. Have central bankers lost control? Could the bond bubble implode, even if there is no wiretapping? But I just want to say this to everybody very clearly here. I need your support. I'm 110% into this fight. And I need you to spread the word about the broadcast, and I need you just to pray for us, and I need you to financially support us. We have the best products, from water filters to non-GMO, heirloom seeds to books, videos, magazines, everything in the InfoWar at InfoWarsStore.com. The new film that's going to premiere the 17th on the Nightly News, State of Mind, getting into how they manipulate us. It's all available, InfoWarsStore.com. You can get 10% off with promo code WATER and all the ProPure. Your purchases make this possible. Paul Watson, tell us what's coming up in the next hour that you're going to be breaking down. You've got a big raft of important news.
Hi, Alex. Good to be back. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Homeland Security drill across America yesterday, where Americans celebrated their independence by submitting to random bag searches by pot-bellied TSA agents, and the local news channel in LA said that people need to thank those TSA agents for their work in safeguarding America.
No, they actually give them medals, combat medals.
Well, exactly. You have to thank the overlords for imposing their tyranny upon you. It's not enough just to obey anymore. You've got to thank them for it.
In fact, it's not enough to lick the boots now. They're saying you're going to have to start kissing the rumpus. Maybe that should be the new salute. See a bureaucrat, they hang their behind out, and, citizens could be bidets. We'd have to volunteer, compulsory volunteerism, one day a week to be at a government toilet area to act as a bidet. We'll be right back. I think that's a good idea, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got a ton of news in the next 2 hours and a short time to get there. Homeland Security conducts top-secret July 4th drill nationwide, really about federalizing police, and the videos are pouring in of police, military with police, TSA commanding them, highways, transportation hubs, just searching everyone. It's like flashbacks when I've been in Mexico at checkpoints. We are certainly becoming land of the cowards, home of the fluoride head slaves, unfortunately. So we're going to be breaking all that down. You know, should we celebrate the 4th of July in the aftermath of it as a memorial service? That's how I felt yesterday. Also, documents expose predator drones spying extensively in the U.S. against U.S. citizens, not just on the border. Well, of course, we told you that, so the media said that we were liars the last 2 years, that there were no drones, no FBI drones, no Homeland Security drones. Then it turns out they play games and go, well, it was Air Force drones or Army drones assigned, and so that's why we didn't have any missions. They had hundreds of missions per airport. See how they play these lawyer games with people? Alex Jones says 2 billion bullets. It's only 244,000. One line item. Everybody goes, man, that guy's a liar. Yeah, he's a big liar. Let me hit this now, and then I'm going to go to Watson. This is a very important little story here. Alex Jones boasts his ratings destroy Rush Limbaugh. People like this show more than his. And this is out of Mediaite. And again, this isn't a very important story in and of itself. I see these type of things daily, and I'm not even looking for them. So I'm sure there's a lot of it I don't see. Last week, and you can go, you heard the show, or you can go pull it up. They use a small clip. I said that I have bought advertising on Rush Limbaugh not once but twice, every time there's campaigns to kick him off the air, and that I'm not in competition with Rush Limbaugh, and that if they can take him off the air, they can take all talk radio off the air. And I said that we either hang together for the First Amendment, even if we don't totally agree with somebody, or we hang separate. And everyone knows that I've had Michael Savage on, and I promote a lot of the things that he does that I think are good. And everybody knows I'm trying to not fight with people. Now, when Newsbusters got a hold of this, and really shame on them, because I linked to some of their better stuff. And I just want to get my country back, okay? I'm really trying to be just a good person here. Okay, and I'm tired of the fake right-wing and the fake libertarian people constantly attacking us, okay? And they show Talkers magazine and what Talkers says is the top 10 talk show host. And then they show that I'm not in that, even though I've been on the cover of Talkers, and they say I'm the biggest show that is not in the mainline conglomerate. I've been on the cover back when they were still a paper publication. We can show that in a moment. And they say out of that, I'm a liar. When I was saying in places like Rochester or places like Abilene or places like Orlando, on smaller stations that have literally no ratings, I will beat Limbaugh within a year. And I gave examples. And then I said, but it didn't matter. Then the station still changed formats. Being number one isn't enough. So I said, thank God we're on the internet and dominating there. That turns into, I want to bring Rush Limbaugh down, and I'm a liar saying I have a bigger total audience than him. Let me give you the numbers. Rush Limbaugh probably has 5 times the terrestrial radio audience I do. Probably more. Because he not only has 5 times the stations, most of them are the much bigger ones, the marquee stations. I'm not about this. It is so frustrating to see all this going on. All right, we're going to come back and go to Paul Joseph Watson. It's just incredible how they spin all this stuff. But on the internet, if you go to the Alexa numbers, we're thousands of percentage points above Limbaugh, and that's just one of our sites. We have dozens, okay? But I'm not in competition with Rush Limbaugh, and this is a distortion. You're lying to your readers. Ladies and gentlemen, when you drive up to a warrantless checkpoint, a random checkpoint, you're pulling up to a group of highwaymen. No different than stagecoach robbers. They have just been brainwashed and conditioned. It's okay. But the Supreme Court, other courts have ruled it is the mark of Nazi Germany. It is the mark of Mexico. And the videos are pouring in. We have articles up on Infowars.com that are just incredible, where the police are setting up these warrantless checkpoints, and then they want to search people's cars, and if you say no, they begin yelling and screaming at you. I guess kind of like a bank robber when they come in and say, get on the ground or I'll blow your head off. It's the same deal. And it shows how far we've gone down the rat hole. America never did stuff like this before. This kind of stuff never went on. Why is it okay now? It's not okay. And all over the nation, with TSA, with military as well, and with federalized police. They had warrantless checkpoints on country roads, big highways, transport hubs, you name it. With the TSA, a nationwide operation, and they're just going to incrementally ratchet it up until all of us live like they did in Boston. There's a Supreme Court case going on dealing with the police now come and say, we're locking down your whole neighborhood, just leave indefinitely. There's an infographic up on Infowars.com. Infographic, NSA is 1 billion times more expansive than the Stasi that just got published. Hate crime, gays brutally beat Christians in America. But I guess you've got to, why not execute all the Christians just to prove you're not a homophobe? Also, West Virginia using seatbelt checkpoint to conduct illegal search and seizure. Nevada police face rare Third Amendment lawsuit for forced commandeering of homes. Cops locked down neighborhood after shots fired in the air on July 4th. So you're all prisoners, and we're coming in your house without warrants. FSA rebel suicide bomber vows to attack U.S. and Europe. Yeah, why are there checkpoints everywhere looking for terrorists? I mean, the terrorists work for our government are all on duty, being given heat-seeking missiles. Al-Qaeda can be trusted with that, but I can't. I'm an evil patriot. You know, God forbid I try to walk down the street with a gun. By the way, coming up at the bottom of the hour, Adam Kokesh did go to D.C. and did rack a shotgun on Pennsylvania Avenue and says he sent me a text saying, I've just committed 4 felonies. So he's had his Rosa Parks moment. We're going to get him on the next few days, next week or Sunday. But we've got a clip of that coming up. Jakari Jackson popping in. Washington Post editorial board goose steps to the beat of Obama's drum. That's just some of what's on the site. We're going to get to all of it. But first, Paul Watson, our newsman. You've got a lot to cover, from the government controlling your refrigerators with smart meters and mainstream news to the drill, which, again, is martial law, but then nothing happens and people just get conditioned to live under it. It's martial law when they spy on us without warrants. It's martial law when our military is under NATO command. It's martial law when they strip search your kids without warrants at school. We are just basting. And the same thing in Europe in this tyranny. Paul Watson, editor of PrisonPlanet.com.
Yeah, this was a top secret, they called it, Homeland Security drill, which took place yesterday, mainly focused in LA, but also across the US. And KTTV did a report on it and basically said that undercover police, along with TSA and Homeland Security agents, would be conducting both visible and undercover operations in the interests of safety because they feared a new attack in the aftermath of the Boston bombings, because apparently those brothers said that they wanted to attack New York on July 4th. So basically they had a bunch of TSA, Homeland Security, Sheriff's Department, police parading around subway stations, different transport hubs across America, conducting random bag searches.
Oh, no. Now public parks everywhere putting up signs, and they search everybody. We're all being trained. We always knew it would move from the airports to the streets. That was the plan.
Yeah, so they had a bunch of goons basically walking around, some of them undercover, shaking down Americans on the day they celebrate their independence from tyranny. But what stood out for me is the news channel's coverage of this, because right from the start, they admitted that they were working with the police to promote the drill. So instead of asking actual hard questions about what taxpayer money was being wasted on, they were actively promoting this pointless exercise.
Oh, no. This is the merger of the media with the state. Absolutely. This is the point we've gotten to in this country. In fact, that clip is in the article that's still linked up on drudgereport.com.
And you can read the quotes from this news channel report. It said the exercise is, quote, top secret, and that's the way it should be. Only they need to know what the game plan is.
And again, we're learning how to live in Fallujah, where everybody's secret police. The cops are secret police and get to fantasize that they're James Bond, and no one can know what police are doing under the feds, and the media's involved, and we all get to play secret agent. Meanwhile, the government runs Al-Qaeda on record and ran the Boston bombing.
Yeah, it's all about, as you said, this secret agent activity. You know, public has no right to know what's going on. But listen to this one. What we need to know, or rather to be reminded of, is that the threat homegrown and imported, are all too real. And in one way, we're all undercover agents who need to be aware of our surroundings. Just like in East Germany, you know, 1 in 7 were part of the Stasi.
But you don't trust the citizen, only trust the government. We've had our camera crews in downtown have men walk up in suits and go, because they're asking, you know, doing reporter interviews, you know, women in business suits doing interviews, and it's like, I'm calling the police on you. And then the cops show up. These people in Infraguard actually think talking is illegal. I mean, these people are monsters.
Well, that's the whole point. They've been brainwashed with this need to protect us from terrorists, when in fact, if you go and read the actual academic studies out of Ohio State University and others, all of these things kill more Americans than terrorists every single year. Accident-causing deer, bee stings, drowning in bathtubs, intestinal illnesses, allergic reactions to peanuts. You know that Americans are 2 to 3 times more likely to be killed by lightning strikes than by terrorists.
Need a 5-day waiting period on lightning strikes. Let me show people this. I actually have articles here in my stack where there were deaths all over the country with father runs over son on float. Fire department vehicle turns over, kills man. Well, the answer is obviously banned fire engines and banned parades. Because if you have people dying in these every time they have them, we've got to ban them.
Exactly. But they're protecting us from what Glenn Greenwald called the decade's biggest scam, which is a good article to go and read. Basically, over the last 12 years, Homeland Security has spent billions and billions on this contrived war on terror when Americans are more likely to be killed by a litany of mundane things. And
it's a giant hoax. It's a giant takeover in plain view. And listen, I sit there with these feds and cops, and they'll laugh at you. Not all of them. A lot of them are listening now. And I go, you understand the government runs Al-Qaeda? Let me show you. Oh, no. Yeah, right. Government runs Al-Qaeda. They publicly run it. I mean, that's what's so insane about this.
That's the point. I mean, domestically, the threat is not real. You know, even the New York Times admits FBI hatched all the major domestic terror plots over the last 10 years. It's not real, but they're trying their damnedest to make it real by provocateuring all the terrorists domestically and arming all the terrorists abroad in Syria, in Libya, in Niger, in all these other countries. So they're trying their hardest to make it real. Meanwhile, more Americans get killed by bee stings, but the Department of Homeland Security has to spend billions and billions protecting us from this threat.
I was reading where Bloomberg yesterday was defending his warrantless checkpoints, but then playing race. And he goes, we stopped and searched 700,000 whites and 300,000 Hispanics and only 500,000 blacks in New York. And it's like they randomly stop you, search you. It's totally illegal. And then now that system is being segued, and they stop you at these checkpoints and flip out when they can't search your car. I mean, they're illegally oppressing you in official oppression, and they flip out when you act like you're still in America. And then they use stuff like Al-Qaeda. The government runs it. The government's been taken over. I'm sorry. What do you make of the Morsi thing and the military not wanting to actually put Al-Qaeda in charge of Egypt and the crucifying Christians at the presidential palace? And imagine, that's not even in our news, Paul. They're murdering, burning down churches. It's not in our news. This is what our government does. Our government is raving demons. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, Alex, I'm baffled as to why Obama and David Cameron haven't immediately ordered the transfer of heavy weaponry to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt to overthrow the Egyptian army. You know, maybe the Muslim Brotherhood should start chopping people's heads off, eating people's hearts and attacking Christian churches, because that seems to be how you get the Obama administration to give you weapons. I guess the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt right now are not hardcore enough. They need to start beheading people in order to get the Obama administration support again. And they've already started attacking airports in Egypt today. So I guess they're on the right lines. That kind of impresses Washington, and that's the way to get the job done. So I'm just waiting for the Obama administration to say, yeah, we're going to give you heavy weaponry and go and have some fun. Go and try and overthrow the military of Egypt, just as they're doing in Syria, while at the same time these Syrian rebels say, after we've finished in Syria, we're going to Europe, we're going to America, we want to impose Sharia law, we're going to kill all Jews and Christians, and the Obama administration applauds and sends them weapons, sends them money.
But then cops want to search me like I'm Al-Qaeda.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. What are we going to cover next when we come back, Paul?
We're going to cover the EPA paying companies to put smart fridges in production which spy on and cut off your energy use.
And that's their own press release. And they have new advertising beamed to your brain. Look at the top of Drudge right now. Fear spreads over militarization of police in U.S. 911 call, woman terrorized, arrested for buying case of bottled water. This has finally hit mainstream newspapers. I saw this a few days ago. I drink, well, I talked about it a few days ago, LaCroix water. Even though I know it's bad in aluminum cans, it's so good, like Topo Chico. I just love mineral water. And it says bottled water on it, and it's been popular across the country for a decade. And this woman, this college student, goes to the local grocery store, buys cookie dough and LaCroix, and walks out, and they SWAT team her, but not even in uniform, run up screaming, yelling, and then say, roll down your window. So she goes to turn the car on so she can do that. And then they pull guns out and say, you know, don't start your car. And then they slam her around, charge her with assaulting them. Was all caught on surveillance tape. Doesn't matter. You're slamming some woman's head in the ground. You're going to go to jail, slave. And now it's all, reportedly the prosecutor seen the video, all of it. It's all out there. This is America, folks. I've seen hundreds of videos where you commit no crime, but say, hey, why do you want to search me? That's it. You're going to eat concrete. Normal street gangs can't do this. I can carry a gun to protect myself from street gangs. I can't do that to protect myself from police in Mexico or North Korea or in America. And again, our police are becoming like that because the system wants this. The globalists are criminals. They've robbed the world. They want a paramilitary force in there to keep the people from taking their country back. And if police don't toe the line with the tyranny, they are removed. Now, I want Paul Watson to get into the smart meters and the latest news that CNS News has been reporting on that. But later we're going to play the 911 call. Okay, as people witness this woman being grabbed, slammed down, and then charged. Charged with assault. Okay, Watson, go ahead, my friend. Get into the other story.
Well, yeah, just on that, I mean, there was also the guy who they shot his dog because he was filming police. And we see incidents like that in America every day, which is why I call it the Fourth Reich. You know, I know things are bad in England and Europe with the surveillance and the police state, but things like that just don't happen here. If they do, it's very rare. And I read about it in America every single day. And it's shocking every time. And it's why people are calling it the Fourth Reich. It's really heading that way because the police are just completely out of control. There's a lot of nice, friendly police in America. But some of them, I don't know what it is, whether it's steroids
or no, it's steroids. They all watch UFC. And a lot of them are criminals. I mean, like Serpico exposed. The entire narcotics division, thousands of men, were all drug dealers. And I'm telling you, I mean, that's what it is. It's like goons, and they think you and your family are in a cage match with them.
Yeah, we know they've been trained to treat the public as the enemy. I mean, that's come out in numerous documents again and again, but it's still shocking every time. But the EPA, this was out of CNS News a couple of days ago. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has revised its Energy Star efficiency requirements for residential refrigerators and is encouraging the inclusion of connected features that respond to utility signals to curb their energy consumption. What they're basically doing is paying the manufacturers of refrigerators via tax rebates and saying, if you include this switch, which is optional for now, which allows the power company to turn off people's fridges in times of heightened energy use, then we'll give you kickbacks in terms of tax rebates. So the fridges are going to be cheaper. They're going to be available from next year. And it's basically, it's all to stop global warming. There hasn't been any global warming for 14 years.
But really what it is the mainlining of the smart meter, controlling your appliances, which we told you 14 years ago was the plan. And we're still attacked, even when the CIA director admits it, and says he's spying on you through your dishwasher and your refrigerator, we're still bad, Paul, for being right. And they're already in California turning people's air conditioners off that have gotten the rebate air conditioners. This is the plan, and it's just going forward.
It's the planned opolis. It's this whole idea they're moving towards of having mega computers run by the state, rationing your power, all for the good of the earth. Of course, none of it's going to apply to government or military, but forget about that. You know, the government's still going to pursue all kinds of environmental horrors like GMO crops, deforestation. But then a day after that, Obama comes out when he visits Africa and says, planet will boil over if young Africans are allowed cars, air conditioning, big houses. And this was his quote. Ultimately, if you think about all the youth that everybody has mentioned here in Africa, if everybody is raising living standards to the point where everybody has a car, everybody's got air conditioning, and everybody's got a big house, well, the planet will boil over unless we find new ways of producing
Paul, stay there.
Energy.
We're going to come back, get into that, get Jakari Jackson in here on Big Breaking Gun News, and then we'll get into the latest on the NSA, and Max Keiser's coming up on the melting down bond market. Don't own bonds, it still affects you. All right, we're ready. We're back. Paul Watson riding shotgun, Jakari Jackson popping in with us. What's really gotten to me is the way people that work for the government in security services are so arrogant. And I've read history books about it. I've studied it. I've experienced some of it. But they talk about in Eastern Europe under the Stasi and under the Soviets how arrogant bureaucrats were and how arrogant people were that would tattle on you to the bureaucrats just to get you in trouble or get your wife or get your business. Or you look at the film The Lives of Others. That's actually based on a true story or a composite of true stories about, Stasi listening to lives that they were ruining, surveilling people, not just listening their phones, but reading their mail. And, oh, the ultimate evil, we'll never do that. And how their own people started just leaking information because it was so horrible to sit there and know how evil the state was. And see, that's why they're so scared of leakers. Because it's not about the leaker leaking what's already known. It's about the moral authority of their own people saying, we're not going to be part of this. People say, oh, it's wrong. There was a military coup against Morsi, who was elected. I don't even believe he was elected, folks. The globalists are backing him. He's committing horrible crimes against Muslim minorities and Christians on record. And the military has removed him and is saying we're not going to have al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood leaders that have been violent and have been persecuting people in a reign of terror. We're arresting you. And usually I'm not for the military removing someone. I even saw Lou Rockwell, who I really agree with usually, somebody on his site saying, it's wrong that the military did this. Well, why are you agreeing with Obama? I mean, Hitler was elected and his military tried to get rid of him. Was Operation Valkyrie wrong? I mean, if somebody's elected, does it mean they can throw people, into furnaces and things? No. And I'm not saying there'll even be a good outcome out of this. But clearly the globalists don't like what's happened. Clearly they don't like what's unfolded. Paul Watson, you're going to ride shotgun a little bit more with me in the next hour and take some calls ahead of Max Keiser. We're going to get to some Second Amendment news here in just a moment. But I mentioned this earlier, but I want to mention it again and get your take on it. Because they had newsbusters. I'm actually looking for the article. I had it here. They had newsbusters. Oh, yeah, there it is. No, that's another Newsbusters article, who we link to sometimes. They do some good work occasionally. That's exposing the left. They'll actually report the news. None of it's the so-called right wing. Oh, here it is. Alex Jones, I will defeat Rush Limbaugh in the free market of ideas. People like this show more than his. Now, that's a quote out of context in there. And my issue is, I don't want to be like all the other talk show hosts that fight with each other and hate each other. Okay, if they can bring down Limbaugh, as they've tried to do, they can bring down all of talk radio. And there's major moves to do this. And there's Bloomberg articles saying I shouldn't be on XM. There's White House-controlled Media Matters saying I should be taken off the radio, basically. When they try to bring him down a couple years ago and again last year, I went with Ted Anderson, 50-50, and bought a large amount of advertising, okay? A large amount. Because I believe, plus I wanted to test it out and see how it did. It kind of broke even. I think it was overpriced. It was like $4,000 60 seconds, and that was when it was discounted because folks had driven it down. And we wanted to go see, if advertising on there would work, and it was okay. But B, and probably even more importantly, we wanted to make a statement. And that was what my rant was about last week. And I said, with mom and pop stations, we've been able to beat him in the ratings many times. And I gave examples. So they put out a Talkers magazine thing saying, that I'm not beating Rush Limbaugh nationwide. I never said that. And then basically say I'm a liar. Even though I've been on the cover of Talkers magazine breaking down that I have the largest online audience, the largest podcast. I mean, nobody out there's got 600,000 people a day downloading it like we do. And it just goes on and on. So my issue is that I'm sick of this distortion. In fact, if you guys type in Talkers Magazine, Alex Jones, and just click images, you can see me on the cover of it a few years ago. And then people can go find that article. But my point is, if you go to Alexa ratings and type in Infowars.com versus RushLimbaugh.com, we're thousands of places above him. And that's just one of our sites. Now, he's not mainly an internet guy. I'm not in competition with Rush Limbaugh. I had a caller call in and bash him, and I said, I don't really want to do that. It's a distraction. By the way, I'm not the one that wanted to be up against Rush Limbaugh. This was the job offer I was given, was in this time slot 15 years ago. And again, they'll probably take this out of context and say, I'm attacking Rush Limbaugh, because they want to get us fighting with each other. And I'm not going to be part of it. How they could take at Newsbusters me saying we spent a bunch of money as a statement to try to keep Rush Limbaugh on the air, because they can take him down, they can take us all down, instead of all the other talk show hosts attacking him and joining in on it, hoping he got kicked off the air so they get his affiliates. That's not how I want to be number one. I want to be number one in the realm of ideas, which I've done up against him on stations and cities, and I gave examples. I did not say I was bigger than Rush Limbaugh on terrestrial radio, and I'm sick of people lying to their viewers about it. I mean, man, I'm sick of Media Matters in the White House. I'm sick of Rachel Maddow. I'm sick of you liars. And to see Newsbusters part of it makes me want to throw up. Excuse me. Man, this isn't a game, folks. I'm going to say it one more time for everybody. On record, all of you know there have been thousands of declassified programs. Most of you know about 10 or 15 of them off the top of your head, of giving people lethal agents to kill them, and a lot of times watch them die slowly, including newborn babies, foster children, troops. Okay, you all know about that. You all know about them blowing up 200-plus chemical dumps and it raining down and telling the troops in the first Gulf War, don't wear your gear, so they could deny that they'd blown up the chemical weapons. A death sentence for many of them, thousands. Now, you all know about that. It was in the New York Times again 2 weeks ago. Now, again, is the government the bad guy or the good guy? No one got in trouble for testing in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, right through now, because it's sanctioned by the robber barons that run our country. No one gets in trouble, ladies and gentlemen, for microwaving foster children or putting them in radiation chambers or nerve gassing U.S. troops in Project Shad or other programs like Porton Down in England. Nobody got in trouble for injecting black people for 40-something years with syphilis so they could spread it all over the United States and die slow, horrible deaths. Nobody got in trouble. How about some checkpoints to stop New World Order people? How about some investigations of what's in the vaccines? No, it's all, we're setting up the checkpoints for your safety with a bunch of holier-than-thou cops telling me I'm the terrorist, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Nobody's safe under the New World Order. Nobody, if this thing comes in. You got that, all you idiots that think you're part of the system, part of the winning team? You're not. You better get it through your head right now. We better get serious and get focused, or it's over. Paul Watson, this is what happens when I take off 2 days. I've been actually rampaging around Austin. No, but I mean, it's all coming down. It's all on record that every appliance will be remote controlled and spy on you. First, they do a kickback, what's the term they use when you get an air conditioner that does this and you get a discount on it to get the one they want?
Rebate.
A rebate incentive. And then they admit, then it becomes mandatory, where you won't be able to buy an appliance that doesn't track everything you're doing. And the smart meter is an Imperial probe droid on the side of your house sitting there watching you. I'm sorry, I got Jakari Jackson in here watching comments on this. I didn't mean to get mad today.
On the previous thing, Media Matters, which is a White House operation, routinely writes articles probably once every couple of months, bitching and moaning about how Drudge links to us, which, if you think about it, is really pathetic for them to devote an entire article bitching about how another news site behaves and what decisions it makes.
But that's
Ridiculous.
what the liberal authoritarians do. It's always about how they sit up there and dictate how everything's supposed to run, and we're all supposed to just bow down and say, yeah, you're the boss, I'll do whatever you say.
They think that's going to frighten Drudge from linking to whoever the hell he wants. And, 2 years later, he's still linking to us, been on there every day for a week. But hey, Randolph Lewis, the UT professor of American Studies, came out 3 months ago and said, Alex Jones is one of the most important political figures in America, put you on the same level as Rand Paul. So I guess that frightens them. That's why they have to denigrate us and dismiss us and sideline us as much as possible.
Oh, yeah, we have no listeners, according to Newsbusters. And again, I'm not mad because they did that. I'm sad for them. That is dishonorable. That is deceptive. That is wrong to take some edited thing and do that. I mean, I'm sad for their humanity being lost because I want to defeat this thing. And I'm so sick of my fellow Americans acting like a bunch of scum, Paul.
I don't know why they're so afraid of us, Alex. I mean, Newsbusters, they're supposed to be a conservative, libertarian news outlet. Why are they wasting their time attacking us? Unless it's just jealousy. It makes no sense.
But we link to them when they do good stories. And I just want people to be honorable. Jakari Jackson, you got any comments on this? I don't even want to get into the gun stuff, but you're up here working on the day.
No, that ties into what I saw yesterday. I went out to the rallies yesterday at the Capitol building, and we had the Second Amendment and also the Fourth Amendment rallies out there. And it was just like you said, there was a lot of infighting. I was talking to Rob Dew about that yesterday. He said, how'd the rally go? And, one guy would go up, and then the next guy would talk about that guy. The next guy would talk about that guy. And I'm like, oh, I thought we were bonded together under a common cause. Yeah,
after we defeat the New World Order and get the Bill of Rights back, then we can fight with each other.
Right.
I mean, just give me a break, man. It's simple military common sense that we've got to stop fighting with each other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because the elites, they have their stuff together, at least, to a point where they can be effective. But, us, we have to fight with this guy because we don't like his stage on this or that. And it's always something ongoing. It's always something new.
Unbelievable. I'm going to continue with Watson in the next hour, but Watson, I want to get your take in the next segment on these video clips. But right now, let's go to this first one. This is Adam Kokesh. Went down on Pennsylvania Avenue and loaded a 12-gauge shotgun, which, in his own words, was 4 felonies. He sent me a text of this yesterday morning, right after he uploaded it, on July 4th. And we're going to play that video. And my whole issue is the Supreme Court overthrew the law banning that. So he's trying to create kind of a Rosa Parks type case out of this, obviously. Right. And the fact that this is such an incredible move of bravery in America to go and load a shotgun on Pennsylvania Avenue near the Emperor just shows how enslaved we've gotten, when just 20 years ago, 30 years ago or so, people, had guns everywhere openly in this country, including the District of Criminals. So we'll go to that clip and then go to your report from the Capitol. Here's Adam Kokesh.
We will not be silent. We will not obey. We will not allow our government to destroy our humanity. We are the final American Revolution. See you next Independence Day.
Well, you've got to hand it to him. They'll definitely come after him for that, Jakari.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I'm actually glad to see that video because when I went out to the rally yesterday, there's a lot of confusion whether or not he was actually going to go through with that. And even at the time I was out there, people were confused and not sure if he was going to do it. And I had some people like, yeah, I'm not sure why Adam backed out of that. But, to see that clip shows that if nothing else, he followed through.
Yeah, but the issue is, now tell us in this next clip exactly what went on, because it's not illegal to have loaded rifles walking down the street in Texas, but they arrest people everywhere for it. Tell us what happened with this armed march on the Texas Capitol. Okay, so I got to the Texas Capitol yesterday, and I interviewed a few people before the march. I got there a little bit before it, and I encountered one guy, which you're going to see in the video coming up. I spun around because I was actually interviewing somebody else. I had to break off my interview to go look at this guy because the cops were around him. And I run up to the guy. I say, what were the cops talking to you about? They said, oh, they asked me to take the magazine out of my rifle.
And I was like, well, was your rifle loaded? Did you have anything in the magazine? He said, no, I just had a unloaded magazine in my rifle, but nothing in the chamber.
Hey, guys, mute Watson. You can hear him typing in the background. It's kind of a cool noise. He hammers those keys, but we're going to go back to Watson after the break. You may have changed the outcome of that. You may have changed the outcome by going over there with your camera.
Yeah, and I turned around to talk to the cops, but they were gone. I didn't see those cops for the rest of the day.
You know, I've tried to be friendly with the state police down there in the past. They were very, very friendly. But whatever's going on down there now, they even try to tell our camera people they can't film sometimes when they're by themselves, intimidation-wise. And I just don't get, you like become a cop and go, let me see how I can intimidate people out of their rights.
Yeah, I think
would you?
The last time I was down there, we had a different rally, and I saw Mike Cargill down there. And I stood up on the bench to get a different camera and get a higher camera angle, and one of the cops comes over me like, you can't stand on the bench. You know, like in the United States.
Yeah, but with Aaron Dykes, he's just down there covering a press conference, and the cop comes over all mad and goes, give me your info, stop filming. And there's Aaron with a tripod and a camera and in a suit.
Yeah.
And Aaron's like, why are you bowing up to me? And it's like those Federal Reserve security guards 500 yards from their thing with their guns saying, leave now.
Yeah.
I mean, it just comes down to, okay, corral, I got a gun, I'm in charge.
Pretty much.
And that's what tyranny is. I got a gun, I'm taking over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we saw. But, you know, to their credit, APD was pretty well behaved out there yesterday. It was the brown shirts who were giving people problems. Okay, so I got that wrong in the first hour because I was going from memory because I was watching that when I was half awake today. Just to be clear then, it was the APD didn't violate your constitutional rights. It was the state police. Correct.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, we're going to skip this network break so we can play this clip here for everybody. And again, this is your before, during, and after coverage of the armed march on the Texas Capitol.
Right.
All right, here it is. Again, images of people marching. Jakari, how many would you say were there? It looks like a lot.
I'll say at least 500. And you'll see this is a time lapse. You'll see more people.
Matthew Bailey, Austin citizen, student at the University of Texas, U.S. Army veteran, recipient of the Bronze Star with the V device and the Combat Infantryman's Badge while in Iraq. I want to talk about what's going on in our country today, and one of the things that no one is even aware of, it seems to me, is the farm bill that's in the House of Representatives that's about to be passed. Okay, does anyone realize that we're about to sign up for nearly $1 trillion of expenditures over the next 10 years?
Man, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And all this came out of Kokesh just having an idea.
Oh, yeah.
And see, that shows the power of the individual.
Freedom. It brings a bigger message. If we wear this mask, like let's say like 1 million of us come wear this mask, it brings a bigger message.
Well, this is the real American people right here, Jakari.
Oh, yeah, you'll see some trendies here in a second.
Private service army.
Oh, trendies were there angry?
They were standing on the side of the street. You'll see them in just 1 second.
Today, we're out here to protest the tyranny that the government's bringing down upon us in every which way, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, all the way down to the 10th Amendment.
What do we do? Our privacy rights are under attack. What do we do? Privacy rights are under
Okay, there's the guy getting questioned by the police.
You want to ask him what just right here?
He asked me to not have a magazine in my firearm, and in order to, not cause any tension, I respected that.
What about him having bullets in his gun?
Yeah,
what I decided to
this
do.
guy's a veteran.
The state is more dangerous with bullets than us.
Negative, sir. It was a loaded magazine, but there wasn't a round in the chamber.
And you see the trendies on the sidelines.
They don't know what to do. They just want to take their vaccines and roll over and die.
For different reasons, basically supporting different solutions. I think we all believe that this 4th of July is not a time to celebrate American freedoms, but to reestablish them.
Okay, here comes some more trendies. They just don't know what to do.
Seeing slaves with guns?
Yeah.
Because they see a cop with a gun, they feel good.
Yeah.
And they see a slave with a gun.
It's only going to get worse. So I think we got to take a stand now before something more drastic has to happen. I think that this is a peaceful revolution today. And 14.
14.
Yeah.
Okay, so what motivates you to...
Now! What do we want? Fourth Amendment! What do we want? Now! What do we want? Fourth Amendment! When do we want it? Now!
Look at that InfoWars flag.
Yeah.
That's pretty sexy right there.
And I'll tell you, Alex, I know you're wondering, I have a release for that kid. I talked to his dad, and I got his dad on camera.
Oh, I know. See, I'm the editor and boss around here, so then the news guys are like, by the way, I got a release. That's great. And I guess it was so loud with some of the audio. Let's just critique it now. Great. You know, you get an A+ for effort and an A+ for all the great work all by yourself, Jakari. So great job as a one-man team down there. But expanding on that, it sounds like with the mic, is the shotgun and the cordioid open?
We had a little audio difficulty. Like the first guy had a real good audio doing the handheld mic. The other people had to pull him off the shotgun.
Doesn't matter. You did a great job.
Well,
that is a great report. Jakari Jackson working on the 4th of July, which you should be doing. You know, I ended up running around just crazed downtown, waking people up against the New World Order yesterday.
I heard. I saw a couple of those videos.
Something came over me yesterday.
Okay, now, so you're on the bridge, and you're doing a report, and some lady is screaming at you to shut up. But
then later, I actually, in the first video on the bridge, you'll actually see her and her husband. When I say 30 feet, it's more like 50 feet. They're way down on this bench. I hadn't even been on that end yet.
Right.
I wasn't talking loud. I was like, and here we are at the bridge, blah, 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 and even a lower voice than I do on air. And I'm talking about how they're federalizing police all over the country and how this is just conditioning for incremental martial law. And on the video, because then, again, I quit shooting for radio listeners to describe it and then started walking across the bridge to finish my jog, and that's when they said something to me. But upon reviewing it, there's no way she could even hear me.
Yeah.
So
she just saw you.
They were watching me. You could see them on the video watching me from the bench because they were turned facing the other way, but they turned around. So they're turned around looking over the back of the bench at me, and then I'm walking by him, and she goes, "You just shut up your brainwashing." And I went, "Excuse me?" She goes, "You heard me. You're full of a bunch of brainwashing." You know, to paraphrase, I think that's almost exactly it. And then I went, "Excuse me, what am I brainwashing about?" And her husband goes, "Get out of here." So it's like they're going to talk to me, and then I'm not to respond. And I started assessing them. They were both government workers.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell probably both former military, but like socialist type. And I was just like, why are you saying I'm brainwashing? And I was thinking, I didn't film these people. I hadn't even gotten to these people yet. Why are they? Right. And they started laughing at me. And there was some other guy with him. He was laughing, and he was videotaping too. And he said, "I told you." He starts getting up, and he goes, "I told you, get out of here."
Oh, they were bowing up.
And I just went, "I'm not going anywhere, buddy. I got a First Amendment." So she started calling the cops on me, it looked like. So I started walking away after they started walking away. And then some park rangers came by who were listeners. And by then I was taping again in case they came and started something, because they started walking away. And then it's all dog psychology. As soon as I turned, then they came back. Just like if dog runs up on you and you yell at it and then turn to walk away, it comes again.
Right.
I'm telling you, people act like animals, man. I have never seen cops as well.
Yeah.
You stand your ground, they back off. As soon as you turn away, it's over.
Yeah.
Keiser in the back. And I don't understand it. I mean, are we literally the equivalent of like pit bulls or something? I mean, is that how humans act?
I don't know. I mean, just when we were doing the march yesterday, and I couldn't believe how many people were just standing on the sidelines dumbfounded, like they're watching some type of live action documentary. Like, oh, there's people walking in the street. I'm like, yeah, you can come and join us, but they didn't want to put down their lattes and carrot sticks or whatever else they were eating on the 4th of July. It was good overall. But,
well, I want to salute that crowd looked like 800 people to me. I mean, you say over 500?
It's well over 500. I don't know the exact estimates, and actually I had to do some creative editing. There was a topless girl in there I had to try to do my best to cut out. I don't think she made it. I'm pretty sure she's not an artist.
No, I hear you. So you had to cut out a lot of the marches. What you're saying.
Yeah, because she was always in the shot, so I had to cut a lot of it out. But by and large, I think you got a good idea of.
I heard a conspiracy theory. I heard those used to feed babies.
Well,
now it's 75% corn syrup, and the brains are tiny.
That's probably.
Can you believe there are conspiracy theorists say that there used to be a thing called families and dads and mothers, and they used to feed babies with us?
It always makes me laugh when a caller calls up and you're like, you weren't breastfed, were you? And they're like, how'd you know? And it's just, I never even asked my mother if I was breastfed. It never.
Kari, I think you were probably breastfed.
I probably was, but it just never occurred in my mind. You
need to give her a call.
Yeah.
Hey, it's hard work for the women, but it's important. It's designed for us because it actually comes from our mother with our genetics. It has all the vaccines of every woman before her, all the way back to the mitochondrial DNA. Did you know that?
No.
That's why cutting breastfeeding off is never before happened until the last few hundred years. Every once in a while, a baby couldn't take their mother's milk because of whatever reason. You gave them a jackass's milk was the best. Reportedly, all of the world donkeys have the best milk for babies. But there's all sorts of other stuff. But no, it is a crime against humanity. It really hit me. All of this is a crime against humanity. The GMO with pesticides that grow in the corn, the wheat, all of it, the New World Order, all of this is a bunch of crazy people who get off on screwing everything up.
Exactly, exactly.
You're such an extremist.
I am pretty extreme. I like freedom on the 4th of July, and, I don't want to be told I can't have my sparklers or whatever else I choose.
Because you might be a terrorist.
Yeah.
Everybody could be a terrorist but the government, and then lo and behold, you look at the government, they're the ones running the terrorists. What'd you think? Golly, Sergeant. We'll be right back with the third hour. Thanks, Jakari. That video's up on Infowars.com, right?
Yes.
All right, it's up there. Well, we got a hate crime video up on Infowars.com. Gays brutally beat Christians in America. And you've got a gang of gays. And it's not that I mind calling them gays. I have to use the term everybody orders me to use. It's all brainwashing. I mean, you would call it heterosexuals. What would you call it? Straights? Imagine if a group of straights beat up some gay people. It would be national news everywhere, as it now is. And I think that's wrong when people do that. This is a giant horde of people beating up Christians that came out to stand on the street corner and exercise their First Amendment. And, the fact that this doesn't get any attention. I mean, it's just like groups of blacks attacking whites all over the country. It needs to get attention to say it's wrong so people don't morally think it's okay. Just like the Ku Klux Klan used to go around beating blacks up and worse because they thought it was morally okay. I just cannot stand the double standards. I was watching this video during the break. It just blew me away. That video's up on Infowars.com. Watson, I'm going to keep you with us another 30 minutes or so here and take some phone calls. If people want to join us on air, first-time callers, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And again, we're showing this video. It starts with just, kind of some henpecking and pushing and then turns into just a melee of trendies beating people up. And I tell you what, man, you do that to me, you're going to get your nose taken off very quickly. I'm just so sick of wimps, thinking they can push everybody around. Like that guy yesterday, he gets up and he goes, I told you get out of here. And I'm being polite to the guy before that. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just so sick of weirdos thinking it's their right to attack people. I don't care who they are. Let's go back to Paul Watson. This is a short segment, Watson. What do you make just of the general craziness? In your gut, where do you think everything's going, Watson?
I think it's going towards the complete collapse of society, but on a very slow motion process. I mean, the thing you're talking about on InfoWars, collectivists and liberals will preach tolerance all day, but they won't tolerate people's free speech if they disagree with it. It's like those two bloggers who tried to get into the UK to speak at a rally. They were critical of extremist Islam, and the Home Secretary said, no thanks, we're going to deport you. They didn't get in the country. While at the same time, extremist Islam preachers who call for killing all Jews and Christians are allowed into the country, allowed to preach at mosques on a regular basis.
And have TV shows. While I was there, I saw it on TV.
Right. So it's about, we tolerate free speech, everybody's going to be inclusive, but don't criticize minorities, even if they're extremists and even if their behavior deserves
even if they're racist. Absolutely. Well, here's the deal. The globalists are a lot of different combines together run by central banks, but it is a leftist, anti-Christian, anti-family group of kind of Jacobins. They tried this in the French Revolution to end the family, change the week to 9 days. They want to play God, and they want to pull down existing things, existing structures. And they really are, the globalists will team up with anybody as long as it hurts families and Christians. I mean, there is a bias against families and Christians. We know when the globalists get control, they come after us. I mean, it's that simple.
But I mean, Christians all over the world, it's not just a cultural war in the West. all over the world, Christians are being expunged, being ethnically cleansed, and nobody's really talking about it. It's happening all across the Middle East. Christians are under direct assault, and nobody seems to be that concerned about it because they're not a minority.
So what if they take a family out and chop their heads off on the roof screaming Allah Akbar? I mean, Obama got a peace prize. You racist? Why are you racist against Obama? Apologize to Media Matters listening right now. How dare you not want to behead children? How dare you not want to eat people's hearts? Al-Qaeda and Obama are good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now into hour number 3. We're going to take some phone calls here with Paul Watson ahead of Max Keiser joining us with big financial news at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to have to do an hour overdrive. There's so much news. Man, I take 2 days off, and I feel energized. I'm ready to go do the nightly news, everything. But we are back, and I'll be back live this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. Listening to the 911 call of this poor woman, we covered this a few days ago, but now it's big national news. The Time Dispatch is covering it, where she went for a benefit to get some cookie dough and bottled water, and the undercover liquor police come running out screaming and yelling, and her and her friend thought that they were being attacked. And so they begin to drive off. Then the police swarm them, pull them over, and then say, roll your window down. So they go to start the car again. They point guns at them, pull them out of the vehicle, slam them to the ground, and then charge them with 3 felonies. And folks, this is what's so scary. This is happening all over the place. We've got videos up on Infowars.com of checkpoints from California to West Virginia where you drive up to one. They got dogs and lights and everything, and they want to search your car. And if you say no, man, they start screaming, jerk you out of the car, flip out. This is a serious crime. And they'll use the cover of a DWI checkpoint. Give me a break. The government ships most of the narcotics in, on record. The big banks launder it, on record. And I'm just calling it. I'm done. I'm done. And so now when I see police eating, hey, you pull me over randomly, I'm going to come up and talk to you. I'm going to go, hey, you guys know about the New World Order? And they go, yeah, Alex, we do. And we're trying to wake people up. I'm like, oh, great. Well, let me buy a piece of pie or something. But I go over there and they get arrogant. They're going to get a whole speech. And if they want to do something to me, go ahead. I'm done. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm only afraid of living like a slave. And again, we obsess on the police because you are what? Where the rubber meets the road. From Romania to Egypt, the fight against tyranny, you are going to be key in this. And we have the 911 audio. We're going to play part of it. Let's go to that and then get Watson's take on this. Here is part of the clip.
911.
Hi. We have a problem in the Harris Teeter parking lot. We're surrounded by people. And
somebody fighting?
Oh my God!
What's going on?
We don't know if they're real police officers or not, and we're freaking out. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We're in the Harris Teeter.
Does somebody have a gun or something?
We're being chased. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
All right, what's your name?
I'm sorry. I'm Ann Downey.
Who's chasing you?
Pardon?
Who's chasing you?
Okay, so we were surrounded by like 6 people, and they started flashing. Well, they were yelling at us, and then we didn't know if they were real police officers.
By the way, it's normal to be scared by people running up crazy. Stop it for a minute. And it just gets worse as they scream and yell and then drag them out and then throw them on the concrete and charge them with felonies. But this is what it's all about, the fun of rushing in on 2 women in a parking lot who've bought cookie dough, again, over alcohol, over marijuana, over all these things. It's just an excuse to say we're all suspects, but the government, historically, that's the most dangerous thing. That's a fact. And it gets even more horrific. It's linked up on Infowars.com. How much more of this is there, guys? And again, there's 5 minutes of this. It gets real bad towards the end. You can hear them when they're drug out on the road and the phone's still picking it up. That happened in Virginia. Let me go to Paul Watson on this. Then we have the other video up on the site of West Virginia where the cop flips out at a warrantless checkpoint because the guy doesn't want to answer all their questions and let him search his car. I mean, it's just incredible. And the argument is, we're going to find bad guys. What, you might find a felon with a gun? But they never seem to get the actual bad guys. No, it's always about us because the state is literally feeding off of us. We have the biggest prison population in the world, Paul.
Well, yeah, because it's an industry, but in this case, they charged her with 2 assaults because her vehicle grazed 2 of the agents. So she is, even though they attacked her, and apparently from what I read before, they were plain clothes, so she didn't even know they were cops. They could have been a gang of thugs just attacking her, which is actually what they were. But she got charged with assault. Good news is that they dropped the charges last week, so, you know, there is a shred of common sense left.
Well, let me tell you how this is with some of these undercovers now in areas where this is put up with. And again, it varies department to department. I'll see them. Well, we've seen the surveillance videos in other cases where you'll have 2 of them walking and a woman tries to go around them and then they walk in front of her and then shove her up against the wall for just fun. And I mean, it's literal Clockwork Orange droogie behavior.
I really don't know what's going on in America, Alex, because it's, you know, it's pretty bad in other parts of the world in the West, but it's never that bad. People marvel at the level of tyranny that American cops like to engage in because it's just unparalleled. You know, we had the story last week of them strapping people down in prisons, forcibly drawing blood while the victim screams, you know, what country is this? The only place you'd see that is in North Korea or communist China. I mean, come on.
This article's up on Infowars.com. Hate crime, gays brutally beat Christians in America. And we showed part of it, not the really brutal part earlier. I want to show some of the brutal part. It goes on for 5 minutes. These Christians are there with their signs on the green, away from the gay pride march, and the people come over and take turns punching them and hitting them for 5 minutes before piling on and taking the guy's sign away, and the police do nothing. And I saw the same thing in Seattle in my film Battle for the Republic that's online if people want to see it, where the illegal aliens blocked the road for like an hour. So the guy gets out and protests it silently, and the police come and slam his head in the ground with blood spurting, and the illegals celebrate and join in, knocking the man's windows out with the cops high-fiving and celebrating as they attack their car. I mean, these are just warped gangs working with the police. And in Seattle, remember during the WTO, they banned free speech. You couldn't have in the city an anti-WTO pin. Just amazing.
Well, they use the minority against the majority, and we're all being manipulated. That's what we need to understand. These people who beat up preachers, you know, then they complain when cops pepper spray them in the face. Well, you know, join together, support everybody's freedom of speech, and then we're all going to be stronger for it. Don't nitpick and create divisions and allow yourself to be used as a weapon. Cops,
and good cops are the best about this. Like, we're going to get the fellow on that was in the New York airport, the sheriff's deputy, who wouldn't arrest the lady for handing out flyers in the Commons. He goes, no, she has a right to do it, even when he was ordered by the bureaucrat to do it. And it turned out the sheriff backed him and he did the right thing. This is your right as well, bureaucrats, police. You are an American as well. Stop acting like we're all slaves and you're first-class citizens. We need to all come together here.
It's amazing, Alex. I wanted to get to this other story, though, before I get off, which is basically received next to zero attention. You remember probably 6 months ago in the UK, there was this big horse meat scandal where they found like 1% of meat in some beef products was horse. And they had, government inspecting abattoirs. They had new standards, legislation come out almost immediately. Yesterday it came out, a lab in Louisiana analyzed Pepsi and Coke and found a cancerous carcinogen that is a caramel colorant used in Pepsi and Coke. 8 times the safe limit, this cancerous carcinogen. And Pepsi comes out, admits it, says that it's in the drink, and says, well, we'll try and get it out by February next year. So 7 months, this cancerous carcinogen is going to be in Pepsi.
And do you know what else they put in Pepsi on purpose, part of Bilderberg Group? Dead baby cells. And I first heard this 3 years ago, didn't believe it. There were federal court cases, and they ruled the stockholders of PepsiCo who wanted to stop it cannot stop it. So it's baby flavoring. I mean, it's just lunacy. Lunacy.
You know that it came out, they first tried to claim that was a hoax, then a couple of months later when pro-life groups were boycotting Pepsi, they had to come out and admit it and say they were going to remove it. So again, the media treated it as a hoax. 2 months later, Pepsi admitted it was true and said they were going to remove it. But now they're saying, oh, maybe in 7 months we'll remove this cancerous carcinogen. It's in the existing supply. Compare that to the horse meat scandal in Britain, which everybody freaked out for weeks and weeks. There was legislation immediately, inspections, because some horse meat's in beef. Yeah, that's pretty disgusting, but it's not going to kill you.
No, they always distract with something like that. They always distract with, one person died from E. coli. Don't eat any greens ever again. Meanwhile, oh, yeah, we're putting hydrofluorosilicic acid in your water, fluoride. It does kill you. It does cause massive cancer and brain damage. Harvard study. But we're going to keep doing it and laugh at you if you don't like it.
And this, it's called 4-methylimidazole. It's this chemical compound. It's in roasted foods, grilled meats, coffee, types of caramel coloring. 2007 study found that high doses of this were carcinogenic in mice and female rats. So they've known about it for 6 years. It's at 8 times the level, according to this lab study, in Coke and Pepsi. And they're saying, oh, maybe next year we'll remove it.
Yeah, no. Listen, they add poisons, the secret flavoring in these things, and in the meat sauces on record, the big industrial ones, and also some of the other, quote, flavor enhancers they use are really poisons on purpose, because they found in major studies that many poisons are actually addictive. So what they're doing is adding these poisons on purpose, so you wonder why you get a high off of it. It's incredible. Paul Watson, stay there. We're going to come back and take phone calls. We're going to talk to Ashley and Derek and Rusty and James and Bulldog. He's a police officer, wants to comment on the current situation. I've been kind of gibbering today, and I appreciate everybody putting up with me. I've been off for 2 days and just get totally wound up. I think it's good to do this more often, though, because my voice is back. It's not hard to talk. So thanks for letting me take a couple days off. With the family listeners, though, I've been out there shooting YouTube videos every couple hours. But let's go to your phone calls. Bulldog in Washington says he's a police officer, wants to comment on current events. You're on the air, Bulldog.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, man, I tell you, it's a crazy world. How are you?
It is. I just wanted to tell you, as being a field training officer for years, I call it contempt of cop. When a police officer is challenged and he or she may not know what to say, they'll bull up, and I call it contempt of cop. And I explain that to all the new recruits that come in over the years that listen. We don't always have the answers, and I was always taught as a young police officer, I've been a cop for 16 years, is when in doubt, don't do it. And always know by what authority you are on, because the problem is you've got a lot of young police officers coming in out of the military, and it's the training that they're getting at the academy that's you're seeing more of this combative behavior.
That's right. They were in Fallujah a year before, and now they're there. And of course, I do things and get mad and afterwards feel like a jerk all the time. I'll be rude or bow up. We've got testosterone. I know police have a tough job. I want to be clear about that. But if people sign up for it, and then you've got a power structure that wants to corrupt the police, it's up to the police culture to resist that. And look, I want to be honest. I know the police have been resisting being warped. I know that internal battle is going on. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I agree, and it all comes down to this, Alex. It's training, and recruiting. The state I work in Washington State, has some of the highest standards throughout the United States for policing, okay? We're a liberal state, and it's probably one of the best states for citizens to live in, because we do honor people's rights here.
Well, no, I found that in the rural areas of some of the smaller towns, but what about Seattle, where they let, gay people, 15 of them, beat up a preacher?
Well, I watched that video, and it looks like SPD did their job. They arrested the guy with the big gut. It's kind of funny, his girlfriend or wife that was with the baby carriage was kind of kissing the police's rear. But in the background, you could see that police officer watching that guy's iPhone.
I missed that. I didn't even pick. Okay, I'm wrong again. Oh, so they did arrest him. Good.
Yeah, and and this is I live on the eastern side of the state, which is more conservative than Seattle. I mean, that's unfortunately King County and Pierce County dictate what the rest of the state does, and they're super liberal over there. So I'm grateful. I work in a very conservative area, and I can honestly tell you, in the county that I work in, people still wave with all their fingers. I mean, we're highly respected, and we treat the citizens with respect. And this is what I'll tell you in closing. I am a public servant, and I tell the new guys that come on, we are servants first. We serve the people. That's who pays our paycheck. And let me tell you, majority of the guys, at least in my area, they have that mentality, and that's why people respect us. We partner with the community, and that's why we don't have
Sure, let me ask you this briefly, and then we're going to get Watson's take on this and more calls. Are the police starting to notice that the government is publicly running Al-Qaeda overseas and doing all this creepy stuff?
You know, the guys I talk to, I'll be honest with you, they just want to do their job. They're just there to do their job and go home to their families. Some of them, think that I'm a little out there, conspiracy theory, but that's okay because I know that I'm telling the truth.
I know, but exactly, here's my message to people. Look, things have gotten crazy. We've got to get out of this normalcy bias. God bless and be safe out there, sir. And I appreciate you being a public service. Thank you for your service. I want people to listen to me, folks. This is not a game, okay? I may bounce around and act crazy and stuff because it gets to me, okay? The New World Order is real. This takeover is real. The federal government has been taken over by foreign crazy banks. They're installing snooping systems in all the appliances. Watson, final comments. Then I'm going to come back with Keiser and the rest of the callers.
Final comments on cops is, I guess, a lot of them are friendly. They're doing their job as they should be, and it doesn't get in the news. So that's what I cling on to. I just don't understand how many of them can't differentiate between, obvious criminal scum, which they have a very difficult job in dealing with, and people who simply know their rights. Why do they lump them into the same category when it's very obvious that they're a different kettle of fish? I don't get it.
Exactly. I mean, why beat up a woman who asks you a few questions? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I'll tell you, it's almost always the narcotic squads, the special groups that have been corrupted, who are just around scum all day, and they just become scum themselves. Almost every major narcotic squad in this country, folks, has police that are dealing drugs on it. In fact, it's the exception when they're not. And the Mexican mafia, where I live in Texas, is buying the police off. I just hate watching our country rot. I mean, America is rotting. And it's positive to admit that's happening so we can turn it around. We're back live, ladies and gentlemen. And joining us is Max Keiser, inventor of the Hollywood Virtual Stock Exchange, used by Counter and Fitzgerald today on many of the stock exchanges of the world. And, of course, he was a successful stock trader before he retired, I think, at age 40. He's an old man now, 51, I think, if I'm going from memory. And he has MaxKeiser.com. He does the Keiser Report on RT. He's done BBC, TV shows, you name it. Got a chance to hang out with him in person over in London covering Bilderberg 2013. I still haven't gotten over the fact that we haven't properly talked about what a victory that was to have. Let's not exaggerate. 4,000 people show up in one day, 1,000 turned away at one time, right above the Bilderberg Hotel. Just amazing to have them exposed. And I haven't gotten to that. I'm going to cover that more on Sunday. Luke Radowski was sent on his private email that nobody knows about of We Are Change, which really scares them because it's a youth movement that's not partisan. It's about liberty. I helped him launch it. Luke was sent an email that said, oh, this is Bilderberg Inside Info, download it here. And it was child porn. And they did this right before he was about to re-enter the U.S., and he was able on the Yahoo to scan it and preview and realize that was going on. But that's the type of insider stuff Bilderberg does. And I thought I would add that the times I've been death threatened particularly bad were right after Bilderberg meetings. The ones where they're listening to your phone and they tell you what you were just talking about when they death threaten you. And it's Bilderberg. I mean, it's people associated with them. That's happened twice. It's happened other times, too, right after Bilderberg. It's happened in front of witnesses. Where I'm talking to my wife about one of her family members in the hospital. I go, all right, I'm getting on the plane in about an hour and a half. I'm about to leave this restaurant. It was a great event. We really exposed them. All right, love you, bye. And then she calls back later, 2 minutes later, crying. They've called up and said, they hope her parent dies and they're going to get us and all this. And I've got it on speakerphone. The guys are hearing. And then it's happened to me before. And I didn't mean to segue off into Bilderberg, but that's what the NSA can do. 840-something thousand private contractors with access to the NSA databases. Now, under the core system, they're going to have access to all your medical records. You got herpes? You had a heart attack, don't want people knowing. You got HIV, don't want people knowing. Had a drug problem, don't want people knowing. Had gallstones removed, it's not anybody's business. Don't want, you're getting ready to try to get a job. You don't want to, it's all being shared. They're just mainlining, none of us having any privacy at any level. And I saw the video of Luke that's up on Infowars.com. He is completely freaked out on the video. He said it was just absolutely horrible what they sent him. And it's NATO and the globalists. NATO has been caught running not just child kidnapping, but child snuff films. That's come out in the Italian news especially. I mean, it is the worst of the worst. Who'll kill 1 million plus Iraqis just to get their oil and have weapon cells. The globalists think of you as dogs. They will let our own troops breathe nerve gas, knowing... There you go. This is the type of insanity. I guess they've got one of the audio keys in there. They think of you... that was Max Keiser. They think of you... He makes anything a joke, I tell you. He's even more eccentric than I thought knowing him in person. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that they think of you as absolute garbage. They knew they were ordering the demolition of 200-plus giant chemical bases, the biggest Camisea, one of the biggest in the world. I keep going back to this every day now. If this doesn't get through to you, nothing will. Oh, wounded warrior, oh, trips, legs blown off, oh, it's horrible. Yeah, I give money to that kind of stuff. My point is, what about sending them to fraudulent wars? What about them having nerve gas? Our own government blows it up, but they don't want to admit they've blown it up, so they say, oh, don't wear any mask. It's false alarms. That's how evil these globalists are. They run all the major vices. They run all the major crime syndicates. They're evil. The government is run by evil people. And we better have a real debate about this and stop being naive. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm going to shut up and go to Max Keiser. I saw this morning. I wanted to get him to pop in for 10 minutes. He's doing that. Then we'll go back to your phone calls. Here's some of the articles. Bonds tank after jobs report. 10-year yield soars to 2.7. And that is out of Business Insider. Here's one out of Economic Collapse blog that links through to a bunch of mainstream stories on this issue. Have central bankers lost control? Could the bond bubble implode even if there is no tapering? So we'll explain what all this means, the type of inside manipulations going on. Keiser has predicted the bond market would implode by the end of April. He says he's been a few months late, and we're starting to see signs he may be right. Max Keiser, thank you for joining us on July 5th, sir.
Oh, yeah. Well, the NSA, they're snooping on all these medical records. I had access to my own NSA medical records recently. Apparently, I've got a Kissinger stuck in my colon, and they're trying to get it out. So I don't know who I've got to call. Do I call the government? Do I call Kissinger? How do I get this Kissinger out of my colon? But anyway, so Alex, as you know, last year on your show, I said that the bond market would sell off sharply, that they would have the end of the 30-year bond rally. And I said it would happen in April. And I was off by a few weeks or 2 months. The tippity top of the bond market came about roughly 2 months later, which is okay. That's a pretty good prediction. And as a result, now you're entering from a 30-year bull market in the bond market, which means that interest rates for 30 years have been going down. So people who have been refinancing their homes, they've experienced that their mortgage rates have been going down, or people that are getting a savings account at banks, they notice that the return on their savings account keeps going lower and lower because interest rates have been going down. But now you're entering into a secular bear market for bonds, which means that interest rates are going to start moving up and will probably just move up for the next 10 years. So the economy is heading into the very strong headwinds of rising interest rates. And so that's what I was looking for. That's what's happened. And the question is, will the central banks, will Federal Reserve Bank will the new guy here at the Bank of England, will they be able to swoop in, print another trillion or so in currency and money, and buy back lots of these bonds that are reckless, that are out of control now? They're crashing. Will they be able to buy enough to get interest rates back down to where they were at historic lows? I don't think they're going to be able to. So we have now the beginning of the bond apocalypse, as I have called it, and that is a major event. Now, the money coming out of bonds is going into things like stock market. It's going into the oil market. You know, the oil market's still above $100. It's not going into the gold market at the moment, and we can talk about that at some point. You know, that is not a market that's anyone is jumping for joy at the moment, but we know we can talk about the dynamic forces of that market at some point. But anyway, the bond market, as we have discussed on your show a year ago, I said it would top out. It has, and that's what people are freaking out about now.
Now, again, you're an expert in this. You were very successful working in the stock market. You worked, of course, with George Soros' son, and you know, had a lot of legendary successes in the market. And so a lot of your predictions, unfortunately, have been accurate. I have to be honest, I was glad when your prediction in late April didn't come true, because even though I don't like this corrupt system, I'm not looking forward to the train wreck of it crashing, and then the new too big to fail power grab the authors of our great pain will get out of it. So that's what I'm really not looking forward to. I don't like seeing you lose credibility, because I think you're an interesting, smart guy and really say what you believe. And I didn't think you lost credibility, because who can guess exactly what's going to happen when they've got so many manipulative tricks up their sleeves with all their different computer systems to manipulate. But at a certain point, I mean, gold goes up, gold goes down. It keeps going up for 15 years or 13 years. I don't even really look at the price. I don't even worry about it, because I know this paper is all going to die. There may be something new that comes out of it, but regardless, so I agree overall, just as a layman who's interviewed hundreds of the world's experts on this, in my general understanding of economics. But how were you able, because it looks like now your huge prediction is starting to come true. You know, a few months late, you said it'll start there. You even said where it would spread, the types of bonds. It looks like it's the same types of bonds you talked about. You said what would come out of that, but you couldn't tell me last week when you were on, and we re-aired it yesterday, so we're back-to-back Keiser today, the double Keiser here. Sounds like it's a strange type of knot or something, but
It's a bond apocalypse. It's all Keiser 24/7.
Exactly. But what I'm trying to get at here with you is specifically lay out the mechanics of this, because last week you couldn't really answer it. Is Bernanke going to taper with QE Unlimited, QE Affinity, or are they going to keep pumping? Because obviously they know, and the insiders are going to do this so they make even bigger profits. With your ear to the ground, what do you know about that?
Well, many pundits have tried to pick this bond turn, and very famous pundits, more famous than I am. For example, Jim Grant of the Interest Rate Observer, or Jim Rogers, co-founder of Quantum Fund, Mark Faber, who you've had on your show, Peter Schiff.
We've had them all on, yeah.
Of course, Gerald Celente. So, I mean, I just went out and decided, you know, they say the trend is there. We're looking for a turn. I said, you know, here's a date, April 15th, you know, making a bold prediction, you know, and now it looks like that prediction was only off by a couple of months. But I mean, this whole side of the equation of pundits, if you will, looking at the debt that's been raising in the system really since World War II, you know, the American GDP, the American growth has been financed through American banks and central banks taking on trillions of dollars worth of debt. Under Obama, the amount of debt that Obama has allowed the Federal Reserve and other institutions to take on eclipses really anything Bush was up to, and it's more than all the debt ever undertaken before Obama. So the American debt indebtedness is now way higher than anyone could have imagined. And at some point, the debt becomes a factor.
So is he going to taper?
Here's my analogy, and I'll give you an analogy, and it's a funny analogy, and unlike most of my funny comments, this happens to be funny by the fact that it's a funny image, but I'm not trying to be funny. But imagine if you were to swallow a porcupine. You know, the quills are facing out as you're swallowing that porcupine. Now imagine regurgitating that porcupine, and the quills are now sticking in your throat. That's the problem with unwinding all this debt, is that it's not You just simply can't flip a switch and unwind all the debt.
Plus, they took all the bailout money and re-leveraged it into even bigger derivatives.
Well, that's exactly right. All of the quantitative easing and all that money has been used as collateral to build up this ever bigger pyramid of debt. And up until 2007, it didn't matter so much that there was a lot of debt because interest rates kept going down. As I told you about, interest rates have been going down for 30 years. So no matter how badly the economy was doing.
How big is this pile of Kissinger?
In my colon right now?
I mean, no, period. I think we should now no longer call it the dirty word poopy. It's now known as a Kissinger.
Well, officially, it's in the, 15 to 16 trillion range. But unofficially, if you look at a bank like J.P. Morgan, J.P. Morgan alone, off their balance sheet, they have 90 trillion in debt or derivatives.
That's a big Kissinger.
Yeah, that's huge. So they've got a massive Kissinger that's blocking the J.P. Morgan digestive tract in a big way. And so my point is, now that rates are going up, though, you see, it becomes harder to unwind. It's just like your house. I mean, if you bought your house when mortgage rates were low, and now a year or two later, you're trying to sell your house, but it's a lot harder to get money because mortgage rates are moving higher and the price of your house might be the same or sinking. You can't sell your house. So because the environment is completely different.
So bottom line, it doesn't matter what they do. So you don't know if they're going to taper or not taper.
No. The question is that if they will or won't. They won't because they have no choice. And it gets back to what we've been saying.
But it doesn't matter because the interest rates are already going up.
What they're going to attempt to do, in my opinion, is they're going to attempt to. The Bank of England just got this guy Mark Carney. He and the ECB both announced simultaneously that they're going to keep interest rates where they have been. This implies to me that we're going to see a new era of global central bank cooperation, and they're going to try to create a global bad bank or slush fund to try to keep rates from going higher. So it's going to be
But let's expand on that. What I'm seeing happening is that just like you had LIBOR and coordination on interest rates, I'm seeing real interest rates go up, even though the official number stays at 0 or whatever. So they'll still get free money, but we won't.
Well, the bondholders are going to be serviced at the cost of the economy. What's happening, without a shadow of a doubt, is that the wealth and income gap all over the world is widening. There's an official estimate of this called the Gini coefficient. You can look it up on Google.
And they call that the Kissinger effect.
It's the effect of having too many Kissingers lodged in your...
That's enough. Go ahead.
But the Gini coefficient tracks how wide the disparity is in an economy between rich and poor. We know that in places like Saudi Arabia, obviously, there's a huge disparity between the ruling kingdom and the people at the bottom. And in a place like America, it's known for a place that has a very a more egalitarian society. But in America and Western Europe now, and especially in European countries like Greece or Cyprus or Ireland, that is now exploding so that there's a wealth and income gap. And it's not a coincidence, therefore, that we see a lot of social unrest. We see now revolution again in Egypt. We see social unrest all over Europe. We see in Brazil, we haven't seen anything.
Sure, as you said like 5 years ago on the show, as these interest rates go to zero and as money's devalued worldwide, the places where they're living at subsistence are going to blow. So let me ask you this question. In layman's terms, what do you now expect to happen that they're moving towards the bond market breaking up? They won't try to keep that bubble going, or
they will try to keep that bubble going, and they will try to do global coordination of interest rates. And in my opinion, the whole NSA PRISM scandal is about trading on inside information, because all the high frequency trading machines on Wall Street that go in there and they scalp money. That's all based on insider trading, and to make that work, you need information. And to get that information, that's what this PRISM NSA spying is all about. It's not about security. It's not about keeping anybody safe. It's about making the bondholders of these banks and the central banks.
Yeah, it's about rigging markets and having intel.
Yeah, it's market rigging. That's what PRISM and NSA is all about. And so they're going to be more invasive. They're going to want more information. There's going to be more reaching into people's bank accounts. There'll be more bail-ins, which is a euphemism in Europe for what we saw in Cyprus, where they just take money out of your account. So there'll be more of that wealth grabbing from accounts or bail.
Hey, I'm going to do some overdrive, I promise, for the callers like Rusty and James and Derek and Grant and William. I'm going to get to all of you, but we got Keiser for one more segment. I want to ask you about what you think of Mohammed Morsi over there and the military coup against him. You've been to Egypt quite a bit and broadcast live from there on this show. So you've been to Egypt in the middle of all this a year ago. I want to get your take on it now with Max Keiser. I'm your host, Alex Jones. Our website's Infowars.com. Follow us at Twitter, Real Alex Jones. Folks, one of our new sponsors has a really neat online product you need to check out. It's privateinternetaccess.com. We hear news stories every day about the NSA spying on U.S. citizens. Keeping your information private on the web has never been more important. privateinternetaccess.com specializes in keeping your information private by encrypting your internet connection, hiding your IP address so that you can browse the internet anonymously, offering firewall protection to prevent data mining, eliminating records off your computer activity. privateinternetaccess.com. Learn more at privateinternetaccess.com. And lastly, efoodsdirect.com/Alex. Until July 10th, they've extended it. They've never done a deal this good. Buy 3, get 1 free of any of their huge line of incredible storable foods, the best out there and the lowest price for what you get. This is, I mean, I went out and found the best stuff and then got them as a sponsor 6 years ago. efoodsdirect.com/Alex to find all the discounts, and you get free shipping, but only for a couple more days. efoodsdirect.com/Alex or 800-409-5633, 800-409-5633. All right, continuing. I only got a few minutes left with Max Keiser. We're going to start the next hour, and I promise to get to these calls. Max, Morsi, I don't like military coups, but this guy was out of control and backed by Obama, and Obama is, and the globalists are very mad he's been thrown out. But, I mean, 14 million people hit the street. The army, it turns out, went to him and said, please step down. They will overthrow all of us. So I'm not saying they're even angels either, but the head of Syria, I think rightly has said this is the death of political Islam that the West is trying to hype up to tear that place up. What do you make of this Orwellian, bizarro paradox of our government and NATO openly running the al-Qaeda people?
No, I totally agree with you. 14 million people, or even higher numbers than that. I mean, these are the people. They're out there, and they want to change their government. They had an election. The guy they elected turned out to be a loser. He said all the wrong things, did all the wrong things. So they're going to try it again. Now, I would equate the army in Egypt with America's Second Amendment right. You know, in America, we've got a Second Amendment right. In Egypt, they've got the army, the guy with the guns. So what happened was the guys with the guns and the people got together, and they had an extended revolution. They had another revolution. They're going to try it again. So I think on my Twitter, I said, look, you know, the big difference is that Egypt has the cojones to go out there and do the revolution. They got the guns, they got the revolution. In the United States, they got a Second Amendment, but no revolution. So at least Egypt is, you know, trying to get rid of the U.S. puppets and put in representational government.
Sure, so well, but I mean, it's not just that. These are bad U.S. puppets. I mean, they put a guy in.
They're all bad. What's a good U.S. puppet? They're all terrible. The U.S. has totally lost its way here. So there's no good U.S. puppet. They're terrible. You're servicing a very bad, evil place. The only thing keeping it alive is this artificial pumping up the U.S. dollar, the world reserve currency. Once that's over, then it's all over. So this is the last gasp of the U.S. dollar. They go for the dollar. They crash gold. We know the whole story that's going on there. The bond market, however, is telling us that the days are numbered for the dollar.
Sure, Max. I'm not defending U.S. puppets because they're really globalist puppets. My point is that the globalists put the worst people they can in to screw things up even more so they can buy it up even cheaper. And that's even what the Pentagon says about the global banks, is they're destroying U.S. future just for short-time profits. They're crazy.
So the Egyptians figured this out. They figured this out in less than a year. They figured it out. They got on the street, and now he's gone. So they figured it out. Kudos to them. Now, you know, even Jefferson said, I mean, the soil of liberty has to be watered every 50 years with blood or something of this nature.
Well, yeah, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants, every generation.
Well, we're overdue, Alex. We're overdue.
I tell you what, man, I just want to try to fix this peacefully, but these crazy bankers, I don't know what their problem is, but they're really cruising for a bruising. Max Keiser, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
See ya, thanks.
There he goes. All right, Overdrive coming up at Infowars.com/. right, let's go to your phone calls. Appreciate you holding. We're live. It's the day after the 4th or 5th. Or maybe that's a conspiracy theory. And then we'll be back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Rusty in Canada, thanks for holding. Then we'll go to everybody else that's holding, like Derek. Go ahead, Rusty.
Alex, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, brother.
I just want to thank you for having me on the show. It's an absolute honor. I've been listening to you for just over 6 months now, and I just want to say that there was some times, I did my research on you, and there's a lot of people that are getting at you. It's easy to doubt and turn away, but I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I listened to your show religiously for 6 months. Your team, the people that you surrounded yourself with, they counterbalance you and who you are. I think you guys got a lot to offer to combating this New World Order, and I think, in all honesty, we've already won. We just have to stick to our guns and be consistent and just do what we believe is right. And, good always prevails. We might have to go through some stuff, but, to me, there's a lot of hope here, and you guys are definitely, I respect.
Well, you're the type of call I love because you're talking about hope, and I need to do that more. I get so focused on the bad that's happening. It's good to show the good that's going on. In fact, I've told my reporters we should show the good cops. We should show the good people in government, the good private citizens, the good everybody. And I want to hold up the good. Sometimes that's better to dispel the darkness is to hold up the good, so then you recognize the darkness even better. I tend to just focus on the darkness, like people are going to do something about it instead of leading by example. So you've hit a good critical point there. But I was thinking about this the other day. The way COINTELPRO works and these operations work, and this has been declassified, the White House regulations are, bragged about it, Cass Sunstein, I'm glad you raised this, is they put out a claim, just a meme. Alex Jones is this, Alex Jones is that. Alex Jones is 100 bad things. And then just hope people get diverted off by that instead of looking at what I'm actually covering and saying. Because if you'll actually listen to what I'm covering and saying, you'll find out about 95% of it is open source, publicly admitted, maybe 5% speculation. Sometimes I might be 80% right about something that I'm predicting down the road. But when it comes to what I'm generally covering, we're talking high 90s accuracy. And I thought about the Paul Revere contest. It's actually, I was corrected over the weekend. Felt like the weekend, the last 2 days, the July 4th holiday by my crew. It's over 600 entries. So we'll have to announce it sometime later in the month because I've got to announce who the real winners are here and not do a weak job of this or a cattywampus, crooked job of this. But, I mean, what a positive thing, $120,000 in prizes, to then have 600 films, some of which are as good as anything you see on HBO. But from a liberty perspective, together getting millions of views now, that is money well spent. It sounds like a lot of money, folks. In media, it's not a lot of money. But I did it to really give people a focus to empower themselves. And who knows what connections will come out of that or what filmmakers will then, meet each other and what will happen. I did it to try to put some funding. The globalists put billions into globalist propaganda every year. We just put $120,000 into it. Haven't paid it yet. We've had dozens of contests. We pay them all. We will. And how could anybody say I'm negative or bad? They'll say, well, I admit he woke me up, but he's a bad guy. He's an agent. Or, blah, blah, blah. I mean, who put out $120,000 to get, well, my listeners did by supporting me. You did this. You are as big a part of this as I am to get $120,000 to get people thinking out there as seed money to then make all these great films from different angles. I mean, that's all we are, is a focal point for all these other activists and all these other leaders and all these other people that are being abused to have a debate to wake people up. That's our agenda, is to get people thinking, not even what we're thinking. So of course I'm for real, of course I'm good, and of course they've got to attack that and say I'm not, because they know full well I'm for real, and evil cannot stand it. More calls coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now into overdrive, taking your phone calls on the day after July 4th, 2013. Let's go through your calls as quickly as we can now. Let's talk to Derek in Alabama. Then we're going to go to William and Grant and James and others. No, actually, James is first up. Then we're going to go to Derek. No, I get this so confused sometimes on the phone system because I try to go in order. Derek in Alabama, let's go to you. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
Good, sir. Welcome.
I want to tell you I appreciate everything you do for the liberty and people of this country. You know, I really do appreciate it. And I just had a couple of points, you know. I was flipping through the news the other night, and I never really stopped on many of the mainstream channels, but I caught Inside Edition. And, man, I'm going to tell you, they did you wrong, Alex. You know, on the whole Michael Hastings thing.
What did they do?
Oh, they painted you up to be just an outright liar. They took you out of context, had their own little experts. I say that with quotation marks, you know. It was pretty bad.
Well, I can't keep track of all the TV shows and newspapers that are doing the same tactic. They're trying to assassinate my character ahead of perhaps setting me up with drugs or who knows what, or killing me. And the order has definitely gone out. Liberal, conservative, libertarian, fake outfits. And in every case, they, I mean, I've had his best buddy on who said he went to the funeral and talked to the wife, and she says, I'm going to bring down whoever did this, close quote. They think he was probably killed. And then they criticize me in the media for saying it should be investigated. Where is the media's instinct? Well, they're not media. They're not news. They're not journalists to stick up for each other. I mean, in the old days, if a reporter got killed, it was a big investigation regardless, even if it looked like it was a cut and dry case. This is clearly foul play all over the place, and they're going out. I mean, you would think that a day after I had his buddy on, who got the email and all of it, saying they're coming after me, I'm going into hiding, I'm getting death threats, and that the family thinks they killed him, you would think that'd be national news. But no, no coverage, because it's a bunch of cowards that all they want's their paycheck, and they don't get that once everybody sells out, total tyranny comes in. They just don't understand how the insecurity is in that they have no honor. And so I didn't see it, and I saw comments online about it, and I just didn't really pay attention. But listen, I come on air and say, we can't let them kick Rush Limbaugh off the air with their boycotts. And, you know, he's not perfect, and I have problems with a lot of what he does, but at least he's pro-Second Amendment. And, you know, he's the biggest show in the world with 20-something million listeners. And then I add, you know, I've been up against him in cities and gotten better ratings than him. And then they write an article saying, I say I'm bigger than Rush Limbaugh. You know, and that I'm a liar. And then they show statistics to say I'm a liar. And it's just, you realize they want people to think I'm a liar. And maybe I should be glad they're trying to assassinate my character instead of me. But see, they're trying to assassinate Liberty's character by assassinating me. And I appreciate your call. Anything else, Derek?
Yeah, I just, I wanted to let people know that I think people see the news and they hear what you say, and they think that these things with the police and the corruption, that it only goes on in large cities. But I live in a town of 5,000 people. I see abuses every day. I watch the police drag race up and down the main highway. I watch black helicopters fly over my apartment at least once a week, sometimes twice. And I mean, and then circle for 35, 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, they're looking through your walls. I know, they ship the drugs in and then use it as an excuse to spy on all of us. So sick. They ship the terrorists in and then use them as an excuse. It's elementary. You're exactly right. And I just want people to know that this thing don't just go on in big cities. They go on in little towns, too. You know, it's not a big city problem. It's a countrywide problem. And it's going to get worse. As the economy collapses, they're converting everything to the police state economy. I mean, how could I sit down by a group of people talking about how they're going to work for the NSA and all so proud of it, like they're graduating to a new plateau of the galaxy or something? It was just disgraceful, despicable, and painful, because they're not even really bad people. They're just idiots. I appreciate you calling in. It really gets to me. But again, we should be more positive. A lot of people are waking up. James in Detroit. Folks said that NAFTA and GATT would deindustrialize Detroit. I guess they were conspiracy theorists. James, you're on the air. Welcome.
Alex, you are a godsend, a savior to us. Because
please.
Since I first started listening to you, 14, 15 years ago, the black helicopters dusting a small town outside of Boston, you had a couple people call in, everybody got the flu.
They saw it fly over the school with spray tanks and even got photos as it sprayed them, and everybody got sick, yeah.
We are under attack by criminals. It's a basic, simple group of people. They are career criminals. They own the banks. Nothing but short of country control is entertainment to them. A plane, a jet, an island, none of that stuff matters to them. Now it's total global control, as you've said. Jesse running for president would be great. He would have to find a system as massive and as efficient as Organized for America was for Obama. Now it turned into Organized for Action, which is, attacking, of course, the NRA and all of the other conservative groups. There would be a very difficult system to overthrow because it is so
We have to overthrow it individually in our own areas by not complying, by saying no, by putting our bodies against the machinery. The government machinery comes to a halt the minute we realize it's illegitimate and start withdrawing our compliance. And that means verbally. That means when somebody's out of line, you don't lay down to it. God bless you, sir. You want to talk about the Iraq invasion? Go ahead.
Here's what happened. Young soldiers were in these oil tankers that they confiscated on the highways, not filled with oil, filled halfway with gold bricks. Many of these young Marines were taking pictures with their camera phones of these events and these abductions of these trucks and tankers. Inside, front to back, filled to the halfway level, gold bricks, Alex, the size of regular, gigantic building block bricks.
Were you there?
No, I was not there. No, I've seen the pictures, and now I tried long before I realized I have to not save the address, because after this stuff sits on the web for a couple of days and someone spots it, it's erased. I've now been trying to capture as many things to my hard drive as I can.
Okay, but the point is, what are you saying? A bunch of looting went on in Iraq?
Well, the gold was probably the first fringe benefit. The second fringe benefit was massive amounts of these super bills. You remember it all being spoken about, 200, 300 billion parcels of these bills hidden in walls of buildings and outposts, et cetera, along with these. I mean, all the leads for the tankers was to grab their gold. Second and foremost, the super bills just disappeared to the people who were looking the other way.
All right, well, send me an email about it so I understand it. I appreciate your call, James. Good to hear from you. Let's talk to William in Connecticut. Thanks for holding, William. William's listening to his radio. Put him on hold. Maybe try him again. Grant in Colorado, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
Good, sir.
All right, so on the 4th of July, I went to a gated community, and this was a private security officer, but I'm talking full tactical, flak jacket, magazine, holsters, everything, outside of a gated community just to get in for the 4th of July. I don't know who was there, but yeah, it wasn't police, it was a private security firm, and it's just, it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, they're doing this everywhere. It's like a status thing, like in Latin American mafia and stuff, to have guys with guns as status. It's status now to be groped. It's status to have riot police. They had riot police out at checkpoints. We have articles up in riot gear to fight terrorists. And no, that it's for us. They're just getting us used to riot police everywhere. Gee, I wonder why.
No, yeah, I was driving up, and after listening to the stuff that's happened, I was like, oh, I'm going to get checked. He didn't check us. He just wanted to know who we knew in the neighborhood. But again, it's just making those connections. And then I had a question I wanted to
Well, no, I mean, it gets you used to always being questioned like you live in the former USSR. Exactly. It's all about learning to have hands put on you, learning to be questioned. Go ahead.
And then the question I wanted to field. So in elementary school, I was in the class with John Benet Ramsey. I'm still involved in that case, and about 2 years ago, two detectives from Boulder PD came up and asked for a cheek swab, and before I listened to you, so I gave them a cheek swab. And they both told me it would be destroyed when they're done with the case, and I called about 2 days ago because of listening to you and asked them if it had been destroyed, and they said, oh, no, they misinformed you. We keep it locked in a vault forever and ever and ever, and it's like, do I have a case against them? I have, 3 or 4 people in the room that said they would destroy it. So.
Well, I think you should sue them just to expose it, because the government's been taught to lie just as an automatic default. I mean, look, I learned from someone in the Air Force, a nurse, in 1996 that they were taking blood from every baby in the country and putting it in a UN database. And one of the databases for a multi-state area was in San Antonio. And I read these documents on air. Of course, it wasn't until a decade later that people heard my show, found out about it, sued, got the documents, and then now it became a big national news story. And then we learned all over the world it was happening, just as my source told me. They do whatever they want, is my point. Of course they do. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of the show when I said last hour, what I'll say this hour. This is the most important thing. It hit me so hard yesterday. Thousands and thousands and thousands of declassified and leaked and exposed programs. Some of the programs had tens of thousands of people in them. Some of the programs had only a few hundred people in a small town. But it varied. The point is that many of these programs were lethal, where the government would kill large groups of totally innocent, good people. It wasn't like they were just killing people that had been arrested for armed robbery. That would be bad enough, because you're like, a government that can do that, could do it to anybody. This is a government that knew if they could get army scientists, going back to the 20s and 30s, who were eugenicists. Because remember, Hitler got all his ideas from us. To euthanize people, to nerve gas their own troops, to test biologicals on them. The argument is, we've got to do this to find the cure that'll save millions. But really, it's higher-ups that just want to see if they can create groups that'll do anything. And it's really to find out who enjoys it, who enjoys hurting people. And out of that, they've built those groups up to be larger and larger and larger. And they are doing mass secret testing. The evidence keeps coming out everywhere. And they're doing it in the water, the food, everywhere. And it's all over the top. And so that's why I can't even really get mad at the minions of this system. Because it's so diabolical that, I mean, the minions don't even have any imagination what they're dealing with. And I feel completely unworthy, because my mind, just like your mind, is more sophisticated than my speech is. I understand this. I can make all the connections. I can see the big picture. And it's something indescribably evil. And when I'm sitting there in a calm, focused place, I just see the devil. In my mind's eye, with all this data, it is an alien force. It is not of this world. It is so destructive and anti-life, and it's hoodwinking everyone that's involved in it. It's hoodwinking everybody that thinks they're winning and getting power from it, and I just recoil from it. And in the higher-ups of this system, there's like a fake loving sweetness to them and a fake calmness to them. And they'll say, but you know it's for the greater good. You know there's too many of us. And when you talk to these people that are higher up in the system who know all this, but have made the decision to rationalize it to themselves because they're afraid of it, and to play along with it, and then promote the evil agenda, it really just makes me dislike myself. Because I should be doing more. I should find that Rosetta Stone of enlightenment and awakening that can move this lever so we can save humanity. But then I realize I'm just a man, and I'm doing the best job I can. But I get frustrated by all the fake criticisms of me, because I like real criticism to help me be better. But when it's manufactured and fake and based on people sitting down and going, what lie can we manufacture off some scrap of something that's true to build a larger lie around it, it hurts me for them. This is a system that rewards evil. This is a system that rewards corruption. This is a system that rewards dishonor and backstabbing. And it is designed to bring us to the lowest common denominator. It's a giant sucking sound. And it doesn't just suck the jobs out of Canada into the U.S., into Mexico, then to China, and then they get rid of the human workers and put in robots and release bioplagues and, you know, kill off the population or sterilize people. And then the giant sucking sound goes deeper than that. And it's just like, what? We're going to all play along with a black hole? We're going to play along with death? We're going to play along with Satan? Satan isn't a hot devil cheerleader, folks, in a miniskirt. Satan is death on this planet. And I'm telling you, that's where the rabbit hole ends. And I can't believe what we've put up with so far. And how easy it would be to break the power of this evil if good people would just stand up and recognize it. We just put up with more and more and more and more because the modern system is so slick at projecting a facade. Let's go to these calls here. Let's go to Robert in California. Says he's a pilot. Wants to talk about the TSA. Thanks for holding, Robert.
Yeah, Alex. I'm a pilot. You know, I just recently got back into aviation, so I hadn't really been dealing with going in and out of the country in private aviation. I just want to kind of point out, you know, if you are rich and privileged, you do not go through TSA or anything like that when you go out to your plane. So if somebody wanted to, you know, bring something in or get a nuke on a plane, it'd be so easy to do. It'd be ridiculous. And we came
it's all, they all know, because exactly, it's all totally fake. You know, you pull up and they've got drinks, caviar, whatever. You go on the private jet, because I've been on private jets, on Hollywood people's jets and others. You know, that's how Glenn Beck flies around, so more power to him. But the $500 tickets to go hear him speak or whatever. But yeah, no, there's no TSA there. And that's why Alec Baldwin and all these guys say, I think the TSA is great. Well, yeah, because they're all on private aviation.
Exactly. And the customs guys, man, he just basically stuck his nose in the airplane, you know, swiveled his head right and left, and that was it. They didn't know.
Well, they don't even do that now. I've been on wide body, you know, $30 million aircraft, and there's nobody there. All they do is put your name in and phone it in with Homeland Security that you're flying on that aircraft. And if they're calling it a test flight or a demo flight by the airline, and a lot of those things are comped and stuff, then it's not even on record. I've been on aircraft trips where I'm not even on record, I'm on the plane.
By the way, Alex, I was introduced to you, but I was actually coming back from Mexico. I've been living there for 6 years, and the guy who introduced me to you was actually the border agent when I first crossed the border. The first guy I talked to in the U.S. soil was the guy who turned me on to you guys.
What did he say?
He said, things here are falling apart. You got to listen to Infowars.com. Alex Jones will tell you all about it. And this was the actual customs agent, the first guy that I talked to when I, you know, pulled over my passport, you know, and was crossing the border over in Laredo.
Well, that's awesome, brother. Yeah, good to hear from you. That is absolutely true about the private aviation. I mean, I grew up with my dad, you know, owning a little Cessna and, you know, owning another little aircraft. So, I mean, I remember just going out, getting the plane taken off, you know, to go visit grandma or whatever and land the plane in the cow pasture. But the few times I've flown, it's like Star Wars flying in these private jets. I mean, you're up with the pilots and you can see planes flying by where they're going 600 miles an hour and you're going 600 miles an hour and those flight lanes. And I mean, it's like Star Wars. And to me, it's obscene, though, when there's a butler there, you know, getting the food out for you. I just can't do it. I'm not even saying it's bad to have a private jet. I just, you know, I could not, because I could go do events and charge people $200, $400, $500 to come hear me speak. That's really where the big money's at. I should probably do that not by private jets, build up this media operation. That's probably the answer, is do the big professional talks and do that. And again, it's not bad to have a private jet and have a butler. I mean, I would take every bit of that money and put it towards fighting the globalist. Or buying hospital beds for kids in Africa and stuff like I've done before. I spent a little bit of money on things like that. I don't know, but I guess I'm a bad person. Let's go to real fast. There was a caller who wanted to talk about something I thought was really important, but I guess we're out of time. Phil in Florida, real fast on Michael Hastings. Go ahead.
Hey, Alex.
First of all, everybody, I mean, it's already been in movies. They can control the car from up in space. I mean, there's a movie out where they shut the car down because it was in an accident.
No, I mean, that's on record. They all have the cell phone in them, the new modern cars, that they can control it from space with a satellite. Yep. DARPA admits that, but yeah.
Well, I'm just trying. I know that I'm preaching to the choir by calling you. But
no, you're not.
The second thing, huh?
No, you're not. Go ahead.
Okay. So the second thing is that the question about this NSA stuff is, so they're collecting the calls or holding calls. Everybody just loves it. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. But can they manipulate the call? Can they make it look like you called Osama bin Laden?
Well, that's why I got into what happened to Luke Rudkowski. The NSA planted a few years ago child porn on like 20,000 computers at the Pentagon to blackmail everybody there. No. I mean, it's the National Pedophile Implantation Facility. That's what it is. It's Blackmail Central. It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Well, I was going to take today off, July 5th, Friday, July 5th, 2013, and have Paul Watson and others host the show. But just too much has happened. Too much is going on. And so I'm not going to sit here on the sidelines, and I know that folks want to hear my breakdown on things, my take on it, and so we're here. And we'll also open the phones up and get your take on things as well. Obviously, Mohammed Morsi has been deposed starting about 2 days ago in a military coup d'etat or putsch over in Egypt. Now, I have mixed analysis on this, but overall, this is a big blow to the globalists, and this is not what they wanted. They wanted to put the Muslim Brotherhood and al-Qaeda in charge of every Middle Eastern and North African country, and even spill that into Central Africa as well as the East Coast of Africa particularly. But it also goes into the West Coast all the way down into Nigeria. This is the plan. The globalist crime syndicate that controls our government and other governments runs radical Islam on record. I've been telling you that for 15, 16 years. I didn't even really understand that the first few years I was on air. And being called the ultimate evil and conspiracy. But now it's all openly admitted. But it just hangs out there in plain view, and the state and the system uses the fear of the Muslim extremists that they wind up and fund and control as a pretext to take our liberties and launch all these wars. So it's really elementary what's going on. So we're going to be going over some of that today. Also, big NSA scandals. We told you about this years ago. We told you about it last week with Wayne Madsen when it was denoticed and expunged out of the London Guardian and Observer under government orders that the EU is spying illegally on all their citizens as well and sharing it with England and the United States, and that we even use the foreigners to spy on us, and then our so-called government spies on them. It's total globalization, training everyone to let foreigners rule over you. Just like they're now going to have Canadian police on this side of the border policing American citizens and vice versa. That's been announced just yesterday. That story's up on Infowars.com. It's just this incremental ratcheting up of tyranny, a conversion into a police state. So we're going to be getting into the NSA, latest information, huge developments in the bond market. Have central banks lost control? Could the bond bubble implode even if there is no tapering? And again, that's happening right now. several point losses just today so far in the bond market, a few months later than what Keiser said. We'll see if he turns out being completely right, if it really continues to collapse. So we're going to get into Morsi and that unbelievable development. The European states ordering an aircraft with a sovereign leader, Morales, to have his aircraft forced down, believing that Snowden may have been on board the Bolivian leader's flight. Unbelievable. That's New World Order for you. Piracy in the skies, on the streets, you name it. Also, another Infowars.com article. Commercials to be broadcast directly into consumers' heads. I first started covering this about 16 years ago when I saw MIT reporting on it. And then about 10 years ago when Tokyo started actually putting these into soft drink machines and vending machines, where at a distance it beams into your brain. But it made people so upset in Tokyo and in L.A. In trials, they withdrew it. But now they don't care. And Homeland Security will be beaming directly to your head. And they'll be taking over your cell phone with government messages. See, the NSA takeover isn't just one way where they spy on you. Then they force their conduit onto you. It's really an internet takeover. We're going to break that down as well. That's right, my friends. Waging war on corruption. But those of you who believe they know who you are, they're going to come after you in a night of the long knives. So when we come back, I'll finish up with my take on what's happening in Morsi. It's with Morsi and what's happening with the military over there. I mean, it's on record. The military says the West is funding basically an al-Qaeda takeover in Egypt, and we're not going to have jihadis running this country. And so our criminal government is trying to tell the military to put Morsi and al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood back in charge. Our government runs al-Qaeda, period. That's right. The death machine ain't slowing down. That's Summer of Rage by our good friend Shooter Jennings. The InfoWar inspired that album. And look at the cover of Drudge. Friday of Rage, Islamicist push back. And it shows the shaved head, big bearded jihadis. I'm not saying all Muslims that have beards are bad. My point is, these are radical, globalist jihadis that are openly killing Shiites and other Alawite minority groups and burning down churches and attacking Christians en masse. And the Egyptian military basically has its roots in Ba'athist, to understand this, in Ba'athist leaders. So does Syria, so does Iraq, who said, we want to build power plants. We want to build dams. We want to have movie theaters. We want our girls to go to college and not wear burqas over their heads. And there has been a fight for 100 years, by Saudi Arabia and their corrupt regime with the globalists to put radical Islam in charge everywhere. That's why if you're historically informed, it's such a joke on 9/11 to say Al-Qaeda did this when criminal elements of our government created it. The hijackers were trained at U.S. bases. Newsweek, Associated Press. I don't know exactly what happened. I just know there better be a real independent investigation. There was definitely a stand down, and they definitely used 9/11 to take our liberties. Don't you get it? They're criminal elements in the government who are using radical Islam to bring countries down. And Adolf Hitler was elected president. They have a president and a chancellor in Germany at that time in 1933. And then Kaiser Wilhelm got so sick and old and the coalition government was falling apart, so Hitler then became Führer, chancellor and president at the same time, or the leader. Then a few months later, he firebombed the Capitol, blamed it on his political enemies, drugged up a mentally ill person, Marinus van der Lubbe, had a show trial, and chopped his head off. You go, what does this have to do with Mohammed Morsi? Hitler was elected. Obama was elected, if you believe that. The communists sat around and voted in committees and elected Mao. Julius Caesar was given much of his powers before he became king by the Senate. So people are saying, and Obama's saying, and the media's saying, how dare the military of Egypt depose Mohammed Morsi, who they quietly came to when 14 million people were in the streets on Monday, the biggest demonstration in world history, 14 million in Cairo, and it's now been released by the London Guardian by the military of Egypt saying, here's what happened, here's the timeline. And Morsi's confirmed that that is indeed the case. They came to him on Monday and they said, you got to step down right now. We can't control these people. They're going to overthrow everything. People say, well, the Egyptian military was trained in the U.S. The Egyptian military, you know, they're not good. The point is, Morsi was so bad, the people's already won. You know, when you've got thousands of people to every copper military in the streets, it's over. They would have burned the entire country down to the ground. So the military comes to him and says, listen, we're getting funded by the globalists. We're doing what you say. You know, you're lighting Christians on fire. I mean, he would take them. They're burning them in the streets. They were crucifying them at the presidential palace. There's film of this. Imagine lined with Christians crucified. This is our government supporting this. And notice it's never on our news, folks. Because it's not politically correct. If a gay person gets punched in the nose in public, it's a hate crime. The person is arrested. It's national news for 6 weeks. We have footage and an article going up right now of groups of gay people beating up Christians and the police doing nothing, and the media spinning it like it was a brawl. And again, I'm not getting into some obsession over gay people. I quite frankly am sick of hearing about it. My point is it's the same deal. You're beating up Christians, you're burning Christians, or Muslim minority groups that are nonviolent, like Alawites. Alliance that's been declassified with the globalists since they put Mao in 1949. And that's why everybody's so scared. It's the United States and all the nuclear weapons with the communist Chinese in an alliance against the world. And they use the Chinese labor against the American people. I mean, we are just under total occupation, and those aren't just words. So I'm also going to get into the fact that we're really under a type of martial law that they're phasing in incrementally. And now cybersecurity is really pointed at the internet and the free press. We'll explain that as well. All right, folks, we're live. It is the 5th day of July 2013. And I have never been more aware of the tyranny and corruption and never been more driven to resist the globalists than I was yesterday. I was literally on fire with the light of liberty. Brush fires were burning in my own mind, and I had a desire to spread the brush fires of liberty into the minds of men and women everywhere. And here I am, and here you are, and I'm very honored and thankful that you're listening. And it was almost like a pilgrim's progress, the few hours I spent down around the river and then going swimming, listening to people and talking to people. I ran into people laying there on the grass, bragging about how they were going to work for the NSA to spy on people. I ran into people that walked up and said, shut up, you shouldn't have free speech in America. It was bizarre. But I also ran into just incredible people that were totally awake and burning with the fires of liberty. There's really a spiritual choice happening, not just here, but all over the world. There is a great awakening happening, a new enlightenment, a new renaissance. And the establishment knows that and is doing everything it can to suppress that spirit. And you're going to have a lot of people that decide to serve the evil. And I look at people that serve the globalist, how they're animated on power trips because they work for the system. And they're such little people. They're so pathetic. I'm going to break some of that down coming up. But right now, let's get into Mohammed Morsi. This is what we know on record. At the Grove Hotel in Watford, England, 3 years ago, Google met with MI6, French intelligence, German intelligence, Dutch intelligence, and others, with Google running the meeting. This has been the London Guardian. Google's proud of it. See, they love to brag about what they're doing. And they all met, and they said, we're going to fund radical Muslims in North Africa, into the Middle East, and we're going to overthrow these countries and put al-Qaeda in charge of Libya and Syria. And we're going to put Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda Light, who will then financially support them, in control of Egypt, in control of Iraq, and they're even going to try to do this in Iran. And it is basically all Saudi Arabia working with the West to do this. And cause a revolution between Sunni and Shiite. And Sunnis are about 79% of the Muslims. So it's the majority group the globalists are allied with. And the core of that is Al-Qaeda. Not attacking Sunnis here, but that's just a fact. Most Sunnis aren't a bunch of crazy people crucifying Christians en masse and cutting their hearts out and eating them on TV. I mean, this is what's going on. And blowing up churches every 2 or 3 days, firebombing mosques that are minority groups they don't agree with, minority group Muslims, crucifying Christians at the presidential palace in Cairo. I mean, we post videos of this, and YouTube takes them down. And they take other people's down as well, but this is all online. I mean, I see this stuff, 5,000 Al-Qaeda in a square chanting, "We will destroy America, we will blow you up, we will chop your heads off, we will..." And there's a new video out today with them saying this. The FSA fighters going, "After Assad, America, I will use missiles to destroy you." And I mean, they're not playing games. But then the cop, you'll be at a checkpoint, you're like, "Line up, I'm going to search your vehicle." You know, after 9/11, things changed. The government runs Al-Qaeda. The government is foreign banks. This is why they hate me, folks. I'll just state the elephant in the room. And so I don't like military coups. People try to romanticize a military coup here in America to restore the republic. It may have to come to that someday, but by then it'll all be drones, so it'll be almost impossible. That's the globalist checkmate they're going to. But they have things planned so horrible that they plan to go after the military and police who won't play ball. That's why they say the new terror threat is veterans, gun owners, and active duty, because they know that's the group who has the most constitutional information left in their brains. If you're on a power trip, believe the state's almighty and, you're doing a good job, so everybody better get out of your way, you'll be just fine for a while. Crashing through the lies and disinformation. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, on this Friday, the 5th day of July, 2013 worldwide transmission. Okay, let me try to be disciplined here and just tell you what's coming up today. Obviously, the unbelievable military coup d'etat against Mohammed Morsi in Egypt, a big deal. This is not what the New World Order wanted. I'm going to give you my researched historical take on that first, after I tell you what else is coming up. Paul Watson wrote an article yesterday morning that went viral via drudgereport.com from Infowars.com. Homeland Security conducts top-secret July 4th drill. TSA undercover agents to patrol transport hubs. And we have links as sources on that to KTTV and the Los Angeles Times. And there were indeed federalized police all over the U.S. running warrantless checkpoints, searching people's bags on highways, roads, downtown areas, transportation hubs. That is martial law. It is martial law when Congress is told 2 years in a row that our military is under NATO command, and Congress isn't over the power of the purse and the military. It is martial law when the NSA spies on you without warrants, committing felonies every single time. It is martial law when $85 billion a month, now for the last 2 years, it was $40 billion a month before that previously, under QE Infinity, is given to mainly offshore banks and private companies. Media companies, manufacturing companies, banks, you name it. $85 billion a month, and Congress is told they can't be told who it's given to. 5 years ago, I have the Obama deception with clip after clip in Congress of them saying that. And I was watching C-SPAN during breaks last Tuesday of this week. Just this Tuesday, and they were doing the same thing, saying, we won't answer your questions. It's not even a news issue now. That's called brazen tyranny. And that's why it's going to get worse, because the tyrants kind of have an orgy. And then soon they figure out nothing can stop them, and they just go completely wild. until things come full circle and the military puts a stop to it. That tends to be what happens, but then it just falls back into corruption because all of the corruption is in place. It's very rare that the military stands up and something good comes out of it. And I'll tie that into Morsi in a minute. There's only been a few revolutions run by people like the original revolutionary boss of liberty, George Washington, who fought, let's be conservative, 10-to-1 odds, 10-to-1 odds in a 7+ year war, and won through pure perseverance, and then was offered to be king and gave it up, and the King of England called him the greatest man alive in the world. Because their ancestors had all gotten it through military victories, being generals and things hundreds of years before. They knew how you became a king. They knew how you set up a dynasty over what would become the greatest empire the world had ever seen. Well, I mean, we might have George the 10th right now, but he said no and went home to his farm. I was at Barton Springs yesterday, went and swam a half mile, didn't have a lot of time, after I jogged around Town Lake. And I walked in and I saw the coolest shirt ever. I'm going to make our own variant of it. This was by Ranger Up, group of Rangers that put out great T-shirts. I've seen them before. And this guy was wearing this shirt that was red. It was supposed to look like Che Guevara at a distance, but it was really a big tri-cornered hat and George Washington. And it said the original revolutionary. This is not product placement. I'm going to get one. And on the back it said, you know, led troops against overwhelming odds and won. Was offered to be king, turned it down. And it had some other statements about George Washington. That's what the 4th of July is all about. Not government making itself king and every bureaucrat making themselves a lord in your area and taking on the very same imperious, arrogant attitudes towards the people. It is disgraceful. So I'm going to get into that today. All the time when I hear a rebroadcast, I say I'm going to cover this, I say I'm going to cover that. I don't get to everything. I've got to tell you the stories of what happened yesterday, just when I jogged around the hike and bike trail and when I went swimming in Barton Springs. In fact, I'll tell that now. Then I'll get into Morsi. Then I'll get into Homeland Security conducts top secret July 4th drill, federalizing police with grants to go out and run warrantless checkpoints. That's police going under federal control, literally urinating all over the Bill of Rights and Constitution in the name of safety. Well, yeah, safety for the tyrants. Also, Jakari Jackson went down yesterday and filed the report this morning, and we're going to premiere it here at the bottom of the next hour, to the armed march on the Texas Capitol. And we've checked the laws. You cannot take weapons into the Capitol, but off the Capitol grounds, the police violated the law and violated the Constitution, and through color of law, ordered people to take their clips out of their rifles, which, by the way, weren't even loaded. So disgraceful activities right there. The people say they complied. And again, these guys had the courage to go out with rifles on the street, knowing it's legal and lawful, but that people, it's like seeing a black person after slavery was ended, you know, running their own business. People would go and burn it down. It's like, hey, you're not going to run a business and be free. And it's the same thing. We're having our own civil rights of having guns and openly carrying them to say, look, stop trying to put our guns in the closet so you can then ban them. We're out of the closet with our guns. We're not ashamed of it. And still, the Austin police, the same ones that 3 months ago tried to say we couldn't hand out magazines downtown until I had to threaten to sue them, lo and behold, went and violated the Constitution, Bill of Rights, along with the state police. I'm going to be showing that coming up. Total color of law. I think I need to now just get around to it, get a loaded rifle, and go march up and down. And they'll try some fake disorderly conduct or something. I'll have cameras and I'll beat it. And, you know, they try to slam my head in the ground or something and then say I resisted them, whatever. I mean, at a certain point, we got to sit at the front of the bus here. We're not sitting at the back of the bus anymore. And just watching this, it's got to be dealt with. So Jakari Jackson is going to be in here at the bottom of the hour. Paul Watson's coming up later in this hour. And Max Keiser, we just called him. I thought, hey, why don't we try to get Max Keiser on right before the show started, because he predicted the bond market would begin to implode, and that's now starting, and even mainstream corporate media is saying this may be the beginning of that. Now, they may pump it back up or something. They've got all sorts of insider trading tricks, but we'll find out with Max Keiser last 30 minutes today, just to give you an idea of how big this broadcast is going to be. So that's just some of what we're going to be breaking down today. And then I do want to mention a Mediaite and Newsbuster article before this hour ends that are just another example of disinformation. And I'm seeing this every day against Infowars.com and yours truly, where they will take something I've said that is mainstream media, alternative media, for reasons of jealousy, reasons of envy, reasons of establishment bootlicking, especially when it's Media Matters, run by the White House or MSNBC. They will say and edit clips of what I've said out of context to misrepresent what I've said. So I will get to that briefly. Incredible. Incredible what they can do with editing. And I don't know who edited it, but it's just what they do. And my listeners need to understand this is going to happen more and more. And it's generally off of calls. You'll call in, you'll say, could this be weather weapons that hit Oklahoma, the tornadoes? And I say, well, weather weapons are real, and here's the history, and here's a Fox News and AP article, and here's a Daily Mail story, but I don't think this was probably a weather weapon. But you can never tell because they've already modified the atmosphere so much, they may not even know they've done something that's causing a problem. But I said it's probably a real tornado. Tornadoes are at 60-year lows. Here's USA Today. That turns into, I said Obama sent the tornado. And folks, it's every day without looking now. They'll put out an article going, he's lying, 200,000 bullets got bought. And they'll show one line item out of thousands of bullet purchases the last 2 years, over $2 billion, and just say, look, he's a liar, and put it in hundreds of newspapers. And they just do it constantly. And they do it from the right wing, the left wing, because it's all a bunch of establishment people who are threatened by the fact that we're expanding people's horizons and getting people to think outside the box. And I bring this up because it's positive that InfoWars is being attacked from every angle. That's happening because we're so on target, ladies and gentlemen. We're going off globalist source documents. We know what we're talking about. So that's coming up as well today. Now, when we come back here in about a minute and a half, we're going to break in about a minute and a half. I'll come back into the Morsi. And then, as I said, the big banking news, it's all up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And then after I've covered Morsi, I'll get into the latest NSA. The Bolivian president's plane was ordered down by the, quote, U.S. in Europe to look if Snowden was on board. See, there's no diplomatic immunity for countries unless they're in the inside gang. It's not the U.S. that ordered this. It's the big banks that run America. The whole world knows, I mean, that Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of England, Bundesbank runs America and the nuclear weapons. The Army War College brags about this. And the Russians are scared. The communist Chinese aren't scared. They're in a secret